sticking your head up, Joy. See if it fits. Why don't you try sticking your head up, Joy? See if it fits. Yeah?
Students, the martyrs, shooters with llamas, Uzis with armor, cruising through like the Unabomber, maneuver like the army. This hell away, this or is this a living hell on earth? But if life's another kind of test, prepare us for the worst. Swerve through the darkest trenches, learning God's perceptions and intentions through grimy legends, plotting benches from project benches. I've learned a lot of lessons, time will test us. Comrades will ride against us over pride and jealousy, it's kinda senseless. I just grind relentless from an environment that's crime affected, knowing my total potential to rise is endless. Higher than ever was making it look effortless, still the death of us. It's not the precipice, but with the messages. I know the ledge like I know the edge of the cliff, overlooking the rocky road of rival. Meet my holy disciples, just a couple killers that's also known to mostly trifle. Holding the rifle to your door while quoting the Bible.
Oh shit, man, I got everything. I got Bennies, I got black beauties, I got pink hearts, yellow jackets, reds, grass, speed, acid, pumpkin, Dexys, Valium, Azarax, Dragon Eggs, Chinese ladies. I got the everything, man. You name it, I got it. I got a pill make you throw up and don't worry about it. I got a pill make you throw up and die.
Raised in the slum, fallen angels with razors and guns, briefcases of drugs, hatred and love, taking the blood, lacing the blunt, we ultramagnetically raising it up, like purple rain angel dust, the cocaine from the plug, shooters with AKs, take a bump, get what they want, run the bun, you extended the pump, till everything's done, take everyone's head, end of the world, everyone's dead, they say we're doomed to die too, and hell awaits us in the end, maybe they right, maybe they wrong though, who are they to say, they afraid, gave up on their dreams, we ain't the same, we're the rarest breed, there's nothing that we can't achieve, but in the meantime, pass the weed, word, listen to the beat.
All right, here we go. This is the New York Hardcore Chronicles live once again on a Wednesday, live from La Ciudad de Nueva York. Yes, welcome back Wednesdays. It's been a while since we've done a Wednesday show. So here we go. How's everybody doing? What's up, Rich Zoller? Everybody, what's up in Canada? Is it fucking snowing yet? Yeah, huh? Scotland, the gang's all here. Gang's all here, so let's get cracking. What's up, Larry Kelly? You got it. You got the new book. Good. New book is out. Patrons, it's free for patrons. You know? What's happening, Al? What's up, Chucky? Yeah, remember that when it used to snow in New York? It doesn't snow anymore. When I was a kid, it used to snow. It doesn't really snow anymore. You know? So there you go. Thank you, Brian. I'm glad you enjoy it. So that said, want to bring on our co-host today, former A&R executive, author, and my neighbor, actually. My neighbor. Encyclopedia of metal, hardcore, and hip-hop knowledge, Mr. Howie Abrams. What's up? What's happening up the block, bro?
Not that much. You did that little promo this morning, and I thought you were going to give my address away.
I kind of did. I thought about it when I did it. It's like
I was like, please don't be my house.
You can, if you look closely, you can see what street I'm on. You know.
Yeah.
The awning.
I was going to say the awning behind you kind of gave it away.
Yeah. So what's going on?
Everything is good. Just, watching some baseball without our teams in it.
Yo, they fired Buck Showalter.
So stupid. Why
would you do that?
New GM. He wanted his own people. Stupid. Right. But I mean, listen, Buck didn't win them 101 games last year, and he didn't lose them all the games this year. It's like that was the team and the construction of the team. But we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, for sure. So that said, let's bring on Mr. Hardcore Shutterbug Steven Messina. What's up, bro?
Up? Hello from Queens.
Hello. Like that shirt.
Got a shout out to Chris Milnes right there.
Is that one of his shirts?
Oh yeah. Yeah, see the damn dirty apes.
It's an Evel Knievel Planet of the Apes mashup, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's awesome. It's got a big number 1 on the back. He does great stuff like this. He was on our Planet of the Apes episode way back when.
Everybody in the chat room was saying, let's all go visit Howie. And now they don't know where he lives.
Shh. The townspeople be out front with the torches.
Yeah.
He's right up the block from me.
Bring us Abrams.
Yeah, right. Grab your pitchfork and come on down. That said, hey, let's do photo of the day. Steven Messina, here's one of yours. There you go. Boom.
Yes, Slain and Stigma.
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah, what is this, Steven?
This was actually taken. It was Hazen Street at the knitting factory and the old knitting factory on Leonard Street back in 2006. Slain opened up. It was Slain. I forget who was on after them, and then Hazen Street headlined, and of course Vinnie was there. All the luminaries were there, and I was like trying to rack my brain this morning to find something appropriate to our guest, and I was like, I came across the Slain shots, and it was like perfect. And of course, having Vinnie in it, you can never go wrong with The Godfather.
Well, there's a definite tie in here, right, Howie? Aren't you in the process of doing a Stigma book? Can you tell us about it, or is it top secret?
Yeah, no, definitely not top secret. We're actually pretty close to done with it, actually. I think I said actually twice, so there you go. We're doing the quintessential Vinnie Stigma book. It's called The Most Interesting Man in the World, which I think is a perfect title for him. And like I said, we're almost done. And we're doing some things that are a little different with this book. I think we've all seen the punk hardcore biography before. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, they're starting to get a little samey. So we wanted to do some different things. And I think Stigma is like the perfect guy to do that with. So inside the book, there's going to be a crossword puzzle. There's a cookbook, which is like Stigma's recipes from like his mom and his grandmother and everything. And then Ernie Parada of Token Entry Black Train Jack fame has done a comic. And
that's awesome.
In the book. But, you'll get a lot of what you want out of a Vinnie Stigma book, of course. Excuse me. But, basically with Roger having beaten him to the punch with a book, we don't want to repeat ourselves. So there's a lot of AF history, but what's great is a lot of it is from before Roger was even in the band. So it's like the real, like the Eliminators into the Zoo Crew, into the very beginnings of AF, like before Roger, and then him meeting Roger and putting him in the band.
You mentioned the Zoo Crew, right?
Yeah.
Hold on, I have
that flyer.
I have that flyer. I was at hold on. I was at this show. This is the very first show, very first Agnostic Front show, and I was there. And here it is.
It was an A7 show?
It was an A7 show, but it was at the A7 2+2.
Oh, the 2+2, yeah.
The A7 annex on.
Look at that lineup.
Yeah. It was The Process of Elimination tour was coming through town. So our very first gig, the Zoo Crew, which was Agnostic Front, Vinnie was pissed that they called it the Zoo Crew.
I was
right?
going to say, Vinnie tells me that basically Watson just kind of made the flyer, and there was never any real discussion that they were to be called Zoo Crew. And so he was just like, we'll never fucking do that again. He goes, who the hell wants to be in a fucking band called Zoo Crew?
You know what I do remember about this show is that they played through their whole set literally in like 14 minutes, and everyone was into it, and then they just went and did it again.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
I remember this. Yeah.
Well, a lot of the British invasion bands would open up and close with the same song.
Yeah.
So why not open and close with the same set?
Right. So Vinny's book will be out in the spring, and we've got some fun stuff based around it. We're thinking about maybe like bottling up his sauce, his marinara, and
that's
like
a good one.
Doing something like that, and then this with obviously we're throwing around like a million ideas. How many of them come to fruition, we'll see. But some of them are really, really fun. And again, we want to have fun with this because that's Stigma,
Yeah, somebody needs to get the Stigma branding a little bit more together, because there needs to be a Stigma cigar. There needs to be a Stigma marinara.
Right.
There needs to be like what else would you have? You'd have like a Stigma How
about guitar strings that keep you out of tune?
That's right, guitar strings. Like a Stigma doll that you like. Remember the old ones? You pull the string and it's like, hey, hey, what's up?
How you doing?
Yeah.
And they could have all his famous sayings and call them stigmatisms.
Yeah.
So here's, before you go, Steven, here's another shot off that roll, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, that was from the Knitting Factory. Yeah.
Slane. Yeah.
I missed that venue. I like that venue a lot.
By the way, let's not forget the Slane Ill Bill connection with La Coka Nostra.
Absolutely, and we'll get to that. We will get to that today.
Yeah.
So, New York Hardcore Comics says we hope to carry the book, Howie.
Yes, I'd like to come up there and actually do a signing finally.
Yeah, I'm doing one on. Funny you should say. I'm doing this Saturday at New York Hardcore Comics. I'll be up there this Saturday signing my new book. So there you go. All right, Steven, I'll talk to you in a bit.
Hey, if I may, just one more time before I go, I just want to remind everybody that Serial Poets are going to be playing with Rebelmatic and the Highly Effective People at Baker Falls, which is the old Pyramid Club. So you can go online, get your tickets in advance, and it's going to be amazing to play that. I've never played the Pyramid Club, so this is going to be pretty cool playing there. And I heard that they really made it nice. So looking forward to playing with Rebelmatic and with RB and the crew. So
cool.
Hope to see you guys down there.
All right, we'll see you in a bit.
Absolutely.
See you, Steve.
Remember that? The old pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
No thanks.
God. I saw Gigi Allen there.
Did you?
Ugh.
Did he throw duty at people?
Well, I left pre-duty because I knew it was coming, and it's a small room.
Was that like a given with him? Was that like part of his shtick? Like he would throw, like every gig you knew, like he's.
Yeah, it was like Gene Simmons breathing fire.
He's gonna throw Coka at people.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he ate well before the show and could get it happening. But you go for the fucking curiosity factor and you leave before it gets disgusting.
Absolutely. Let's bring our guest on.
Yeah.
Here we go. Today's guest is an American rapper and record producer hailing from the borough of Brooklyn, New York. He's known for his diverse lyrics and is the producer, founder, and CEO of Uncle Howie Records. In addition to being a solo artist, he's known for his work with the groups Nonfiction, La Coka Nostra, Heavy Metal Kings, and more. Please welcome, coming at us from Crown Heights, Brooklyn, Ill Bill. Hey, man.
There he is.
What's up, fellas?
Did you ever see Gigi Allen, Bill?
Fortunately, I never did.
Yeah.
I might have had the chance. I don't remember, but if I did, it was avoided.
I always avoided it when he was around. Like it wasn't something I wanted to see. You know, it was like it never appealed to me. It wasn't something that like I wanted to like. It was not. I mean, maybe all these years later, I guess in some regard, maybe as a curiosity thing, I go check it out. But I never wanted to go fucking see that.
In retrospect, it would be good to see him in like one of those enclosed Pope mobiles.
Yeah,
like,
right.
so when the duty starts flying, like you can't get hit.
Fucking that.
The documentary was the closest I wanted to ever get to, to seeing him.
Yo, it's funny. It's like the three of us. I mean, obviously we're from the same clan, you know.
Yes, that's true.
Cool. Yeah.
MOT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's MOT?
Members of the tribe.
Members of the tribe.
Word
there
up.
you go. Yep. Thomas says Glenwood projects represent. Yeah, we're gonna get to that. And here we go. So, Bill, you know, how did you come up? Did you grow up in a musical household? Where did you come up, and how did music come into your life?
Musical household, as far as listening to music, yeah, not so much musicians in my family, but yeah, huge music fans. Everybody in my family loved music, and there was always a lot of music being played, listened to, and I was always exposed to music since growing up, and I always loved it, like a little more than a lot of the other kids. My first love was comic books, and then eventually, I was really obsessed with comics as a kid.
Yeah, and
then I loved music, but then around age 12, music took over. Comics
were big in my childhood. Also, Marvel comics were big.
Absolutely, Marvel had above anything. Like DC was trash. My uncle turned me on to comics, and he didn't even buy DC comics. I mean, I knew about Batman and Superman, of course, but other than that, it was all Marvel.
Yeah.
And did Uncle Howie get you a guitar at some point? Like, and I'm assuming he turned you on to bands too that you listened to.
Nah. I mean, he was into like, my uncle was like 18 years older than me. Like he was like an older brother, like an older brother.
Right.
But he, not just him, but my other uncle who passed away, my Uncle Hanan. Him and Howie both were a lot younger than my parents, so they cared about music probably more than my parents. But my parents loved music too, so I mean, it was just they turned me on. My uncles turned me on to like Sabbath, but I wouldn't say they turned me on to it. That's what they listened to, and I heard them listen to it. Right. The Doors, stuff like that. You know what I mean? And then, I got into the radio. I got into taping songs off the radio as a kid and making mixtapes. Top 40 type stuff, like everything from Marvin Gaye and Michael Jackson to Hall & Oates and everything. My mom was 92 KTU when I was a kid, had like Studio 54 music. You know what I mean? Like freestyle. My mom loved like TKA and Lisa and Cult Jam and we go down on Stevie B, Part of Your Body, all that freestyle music. I still love it to this day.
You grew up in Canarsie?
Yeah, Canarsie, Brooklyn. I was born in Flushing, Queens, but I don't claim Queens because my family moved to Brooklyn when I was still an infant.
Right.
So I'm born in Queens, born in Flushing, raised in Brooklyn.
And that's Glenwood Projects.
Yeah, I mean a few different places in Canarsie, but Glenwood's in Canarsie. So yeah, I lived in Glenwood for like 10 years, from like the age of 10 to like 18, something like that.
Got it.
So like an interesting time though, 10 to 18 years old, because you probably got so much fucking music at that time. Like, do you remember the first music where you're like, no, this is my music. Like, this isn't like my uncle or my mom's or my other uncle's music. Like, I heard something that I hadn't heard before, and like you really gravitated to that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was hip hop and metal, both, and it was like simultaneous kind of, because we're talking around let's say like 1982. When I was like 10, I moved to Glenwood, and that's really when I discovered like hip hop. I discovered hip hop before metal, and hip hop was just broke through more. It was more mainstream, so it was easier to hear it, you know. And I got into everything from Nucleus to all the early stuff, you know, the obvious stuff, The Message and Sugar Hill Gang, all the original stuff that first started coming. I wasn't into like the tapes and stuff like that because I was a little young, you know, like the Harlem World tapes and all the battle tapes and stuff. But when they started putting out records and they started getting played on the radio, I started like looking for harder music. I was into extreme stuff, you know, and it was kind of like an extension from comics. I really related to comics because I felt like hip hop and metal was like the musical equivalent of comic books. It was youth music. It was young music. It was edgy. It was extreme. It was talking about a lot of wild shit, violence, and you know, people. You know, when you see a car accident, you're attracted to it. I was a kid, so I was intrigued with the dark side of shit, and hip hop was dark, metal was dark, and that was my own music. So it was like before the internet. All the kids nowadays discover music online. I mean, the internet for me was like U68, Midnight Metal, WRTN, Saturday Night, 93.5, WSOU. I mean, just all that kind of stuff. Going to Zigzag Records in Brooklyn, going to Bleecker Bob's and Second Coming Records. I can name all the record stores. I mean, you get the idea. You know, and Metal Forces was like the Bible, and that led to tape trading and buying zines. Zines was everything. That was the internet for kids my age, from my era, you know, and that's how I was able to tap in to hip hop and metal and hardcore and punk.
And do you think like
Zigzag Records? There it is.
Yeah. I used to take the bus to Zigzag Records. I used to from Glenwood Projects. It was two buses. I used to go every weekend, and eventually I was able to convince my pops to start taking me every Sunday. I mean, like clockwork. Metal Forces was super important. It was like whatever the Source magazine became later for a lot of people in hip hop. Metal Forces was like the source for me in the 80s. So
do you think it was like, I mean, I think it was such an incredibly unique New York thing where a lot of kids grew up liking like metal and or hardcore and hip hop. Like, I don't think that was happening in like Idaho. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Because New York had, I mean, it wasn't like, you know, like hip hop wasn't mainstream yet. Hip hop was like metal. It was mostly independent labels. It was just starting, you know, artists was just starting to get signed, but most of the major label stuff started coming out in the 90s. So we're talking about the 80s right now, where Mr. Magic was the pipeline, you know, to hear hip hop, and Red Alert.
Red Alert.
Know, just that
DJ Red Alert, yeah.
Yeah, WBLS, Kiss, and then there was also a lot more underground, like the WRTNs and SOUs of hip hop. Were there were other stations, you know what I mean? It was like Hank Love and DNA. They were on 105, and you had the Awesome 2. I mean, there was just tons of shows, those type of shows that you had to like tape the antenna to the wall or to the ceiling, or to the fucking ceiling, you know, to be able to get the station, because it was like odd stations, like not AM, but the AM station sounded better and were easier to catch.
Yeah.
Were you getting into extreme metal and early hip hop simultaneously?
Yes.
Interesting.
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like in my mind. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it then, but looking back on it now, I was like a adolescent, my own adolescent version of Rick Rubin. My taste was, I looked up to him because I saw what he was doing. In '86, I was like, oh, okay, he's like me. He has the same taste.
Yeah. So who's in the photo here with you?
That's me and Necro. That's me and my younger brother.
Wow.
And so that's a good segue, because now I remember you told me that you were probably rapping before this, but you had a band with Necro in Brooklyn called Injustice that played L'Amour a bunch. Like, you opened up, you know, for like Sepultura.
Yeah.
Prong.
Yeah, Sepultura, Prong, Ludacris. I mean, we did opening slots with bands like that and Nuclear Assault. I mean, we didn't do Nuclear. We never did a show at Lemore's with Nuclear Assault. I think we did a show with Nuclear Assault at Zone DK. I don't know if you remember that club.
Zone DK on 8th Street.
Yeah, Manhattan. And we,
Wait,
we did,
was Zone DK the place on 8th Street or the place all the way on the west side? I forget.
You'd remember better than me. I mean, this is
I think it was right in the heart of 8th Street, like in all the shopping.
It's like over 30 years ago. But yeah, like we did tons of shows. I mean, we did shows with Raw Deal. We did shows with Breakdown. We did shows with Sick of It All. I mean, we name a band. I mean, you know, we're from New York. So, I mean, it was just, this was what was happening at the time. I mean, we even did Lemore's with Biohazard. I mean,
wow.
We did a ton of those shows where there'd be like 10 different local bands like Ripping Corpse and Metal Storm and First Order and Mr. Pickle.
Metal Storm, yeah.
Us, you know, and yeah, like First Order or Metal Storm or us. We would get, you know, at like 89, 90, we did a couple of demos, and we needed a demo to get the gig at Lemore's. That's the way. You had to give Ken Creedy. Ken Creedy was Biohazard's manager. Yeah. He was the booker at Lemore's. He was Biohazard's manager. And shout out to Ken, man. He gave us a break. I you know, and I used to bother him all the time for shows, and he finally hooked us up. And you know, he thought we did good and kept giving us shows. I think we did probably like 6 or 7 shows in 89 and 90. Then we broke up.
Right.
Were you were playing bass and singing?
I can't hear. I heard you say something about bass. Your volume went down really low.
Were you were playing bass and singing?
Yeah.
Did you not hear me?
The volume went down really low just now.
He was just asking if you were playing bass and singing.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you asking me about playing bass. I'm telling you, the volume went down really, really, really low. We're having technical difficulties right now. I can't hear you guys. Okay, hold on. I think I just fixed it. Ask me that again.
Drew is gone.
Okay, we're good.
It's just our show now.
Nah, yeah. So, what was the question?
Oh, there's Drew.
Sorry about that.
I was having an audio problem on my end.
Okay, so you were playing bass and singing?
At first, I was playing bass. At first, I wasn't the singer. I was the singer out of necessity. By the time we started playing Lemore's, I was playing bass and singing. Actually, Jorge from Marauder, he ended up being in Marauder a little bit later after we split up. But yeah, we had a bunch of singers. Shout out to Jorge.
Wow.
I mean, our drummer Mike Palmieri, after we split up, he joined Life of Agony for a while. I went to high school with those guys. I mean,
you went to high school with the Life of Agony guys?
Even junior high school. Yeah, shout out to Alan. Shout out to all those guys. Yeah, like we did the Battle of the Bands. I could be wrong. I mean, a long fucking time ago. I'm pretty sure Life of Agony was called Demented Retribution at the time, unless I'm tripping. Yeah. Demented
Retribution.
Yeah, we did the Battle of the Bands with those guys in like 88. My band was like a fucking SOD cover band in 88. By 89, we were doing our own stuff, making demos and starting to branch out and do shows, like real shows.
And Howie, how was Bill on your radio? Did you guys know each other back then? How did you guys?
So I didn't know really much about Injustice when Injustice was doing their thing. Like I'm sure I saw the name on like Lemore, you know, flyer and show list and those kinds of things and the ads, but we didn't. But then fast forward a few years, only a short few years. And I was down on Lower Broadway and, you know, one of those like plentiful fucking, you know, streetwear clothing shops that were down on Lower Broadway. And I walked into one of the stores and behind the counter were these stickers for this group called Nonfiction, who I'd heard of. And they had probably just released the first single or one of the first singles, which was called I Shot Reagan. And so the sticker was like a full bumper sticker for I Shot Reagan. And then Bill actually approached me, and he was working there at the time and said to me, "Hey, you're in a band, right?" And I was like, "No, I'm not in a band." And he goes, yes, you are. And I'm sitting like, who's this guy telling me I am in a band when I'm telling him I'm not? Because I was in a band for like about 10 minutes with Danny Looker called Extra Hot Sauce. And we put out a record on Peaceville Records and like all this shit, like who, you know, put out all your favorite grindcore bands later on. And so Bill knew about fucking Extra Hot Sauce. Our album came out in like 88, I think. And so we started talking, and then I realized that he was in Nonfiction, so who I liked. And so that's how this whole thing came together. And then to be honest with you, we didn't really connect again for a pretty long time. And was the next time I saw you in like Austin at South by Southwest with Nonfiction, or was it before that?
That was the time after, but there was a time in between that Search took me to Jive, and we had a meeting. We had a publishing meeting regarding Nonfiction.
That's right.
For a publishing deal.
And we had one in Tim Mandelbaum's office too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was around that time.
I think it was maybe that was it.
That might have been it.
I remember Search being there and everything, and like.
Yeah, I mean, Tim was my lawyer, and I think he was your lawyer as well.
He became my lawyer later,
right.
Yeah. And so so Drew, that's basically how we met, and then like years later, I mean, we just ran in.
I knew who you were because I knew his name, and I knew who he was because I was doing my homework very early. I was trying to get a record deal in the 80s.
Right.
Not a hip hop record. I mean, I wasn't trying to get a rap deal. I was trying to get my band signed. So I was paying attention to everything. And I was, I had my own zine at the time. I was really tapped into who was signing who, what was going on. So I knew who Howie was.
Yeah.
He just didn't know who the fuck. He didn't know who the fuck I was.
Right. Not yet.
I was a kid. I was a little kid at the time. I mean, Howie's like 4 or 5 years older than me. So
yeah, we were both those like scourers of liner notes guys, so like and we both, if you go back, it's funny, it always like fucking all goes back to Kiss. And so like that was like those first albums where I was like, what's Casablanca Records, what's Rocksteady, like what does that guy do, like he's got a credit, blah blah blah, like what does he do for Kiss? Like fun fact
because you brought up Casablanca. Bogart is from Glenwood Projects.
Oh shit.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was raised in Glenwood Projects.
I knew he was a New Yorker. That's all I knew.
They just put out a movie, a biography, a biopic, and
I haven't seen that.
They show him in a luncheonette in Canarsie as a kid.
Oh, that's crazy.
They actually put Canarsie, Brooklyn on the screen and everything.
Wow. Yeah, and then so again, fast forwarding a little bit, Bill and I ran in very similar circles. We liked a lot of the same music. I was probably by then really running in a little bit more hardcore circles, which Bill liked too, but he was a very much like, you were a real death metal guy. Like you loved, Obituary and Death and all that stuff. And I dabbled in it, but like, it wasn't really my thing. Later on, I wound up loving Obituary, and all that. But like, because when I worked at in effect with Combat, they had all these bands and they were getting all this attention, and like the hardcore bands weren't, like AF and stuff, and I was like almost resentful, and like I almost had a hard time listening to the bands because like I was like, fuck you, like, and but later on, like doing Merciless with Bill, which was amazing. I know I sent you some flyers, Drew, but like Bill would always bring like a good 5 death metal songs to every show. And, like some of them, I was either remembering them or I was hearing them for the first time. And I was like, I actually really like this. You know what I mean? Like things like that. But I didn't, at the time, sort of, I wasn't open to it at all. I was like the hardcore purist fucking, scumbag.
I got into the tape trading side of stuff, and the death metal stuff was king.
Right.
Death and grind, a lot of grindcore.
Hey, Bill, let me ask you, since we're here, could you give us a little take on L'Amour? Like for those that may not know, what did it mean, to you and to the Brooklyn scene? Could you give us some perspective on L'Amour?
I had to get a fake ID to get into L'Amour's for the first time because you had to be 16 years old. I started going to L'Amour's when I was 14. And I used to get there at like 5, 6 o'clock. Doors would be open at 9. Me and whoever I was rolling with would get there at like 6. We'd be the first people online. Anytime I went to a show at Lemore's, I would be waiting for the buses to pull up. I don't know why, because I never spoke to anybody getting off the buses. I was too shy. I never asked them to sign anything. I never bothered them. There's no camera phones. I never tried to film them and no shit like that, obviously. I just wanted to see them. I wanted to see what was going on. I knew the only way to get into this shit was to fucking get into this shit. So I was into it early. So I knew who Howie was. I knew who Dom DeLuca was. Shout out to my boy Brooklyn Dom. Dom was working at Lemore's at the time. I didn't know who the fuck he was, but I knew who he was. You know what I mean? And if you understand what I'm saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just, the only way you could find out who's who and what's going on and who to speak to and what's what was to be there. So I used to get there 3 hours early. And so that was how we used to do Lemore's. And by the time I was 16, 17, I stopped coming so early.
Yeah.
It started getting played out. But, by the time I was 17, I think I was already starting to play Lemore's. So it was quick. And at that time, it didn't seem as quick because a year seemed like fucking 20 years back then. But now, looking back on it now, it's like bang, bang, bang. You know what I mean? Like, I said I wanted to play at Lemore's, and we played at Lemore's. You know what I mean? And like, it was crazy. It's crazy. Can't even believe it now, looking back on it now, that we did that. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Lemoore was like the metal. It was the metal mecca. I mean, like you asked about the Brooklyn scene. How about the worldwide metal scene? I mean, it was home to so many bands from here, but it was also the home away from home for bands like Metallica and like, all these bands when they finally came east, Slayer, everybody, that's where they played. And that was the place that, really wanted to host those kinds of bands. And like, it's funny because Metallica played there like a whole bunch of times super early on and then never played there again after 1985. And those were the last times that they played. But like, when Iron Maiden was in the middle of like probably their biggest ever US tour, they stopped and played, Lemoore. Kiss played Lemoore. And then the adjacent club, the Warehouse, that was like after Lemoore closed and, all that shit. But it was the place that let that stuff breathe. I mean, when I had a fanzine, we used to go to CB's and Lemoore, and we would sell our zines outside, and we'd sell them up and down the line, and like so all the ill bills that were there early and were like outside, we would sell fanzines to them, and we did interviews with all the local bands, and in some cases the international bands, like when Exodus would come to New York for the first time, we interviewed them, and then even Agnostic Front and NYC Mayhem, COC, we did all those bands, and there was that crossover period there, where the Lemoore kids started to go to CB's matinees, and that's to me how the New York, it wasn't like hardcore bands playing Lemoore. That happened a little bit later. It was the Lemoore metal kids going to matinees and like testing those waters. And you started to see that happen. And, it was
I went to a few of those.
Yeah.
And Gore-Tex from Nonfiction at that time was way more into hardcore. He was into straight edge. He was straight edge. So he literally used to put X's on his hands and wear Youth of Today t-shirts and go to buy all the 7 inches. And I wasn't buying the stuff. I was just taping it off of him.
Right.
Like I was buying more metal records and he was buying more of the hardcore stuff. He was going to CB's every weekend. He was going to every matinee. I would go once or twice a year. Right. I was going to Lemoore. I was all about Lemoore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's how that crossover happened. It was sort of like, you'd go to Lemoore and you'd see these T-shirts you never saw before, these bands, and then like you could check out the bands obviously and whatever. But like CB's was every week, so it was super reliable. Like you wouldn't go to Lemoore every single week because there'd be like hair metal shit going on or whatever, like just local bands that you didn't care about. So it was a different thing because it was a big club. So they kind of had to fill it. It was a different thing. So CB's, you'd have those shows with like 40 people milling around. And then, like an AF or a Murphy's Law would play and it would be a line around the corner and, like a fucking sweatbox. But that's how it happened. I mean, it was like this exchange of music because at that time, like Bill was into the extreme death metal stuff and whatever. And music became about extremity. It became about fast and it became about who played the fastest. And that kind of shit. And it was like, hey, you know, if you heard this band DRI, you know, blah, 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 they play so fucking fast, you know? And, you know, even Victim in Pain comes out and you have a song like Society Suckers and you're just like, Jesus Christ, like, you know, no metal band does this because they're trying to be so precise, you know? But then there were the kids who didn't care about that. They just wanted the extremity and that aggression and all that. And that shit was, you know, that shit was one and the same kind of after a while.
And then grindcore came out.
I like what David says. You had to call Lamore to get the schedule.
Yeah.
You had to call, and like it was like when you used to call sports phone. Remember calling sports phone?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you call Lamore to, you know, it's like to find out like
who's playing.
Right.
Or you had to catch their ad in like the Aquarian or some shit.
Right.
You know?
Well, U68 had commercials.
Right. They did have Lamore commercials.
Oh, they did.
TV,
They did.
They had TV commercials.
Yeah. They had those Lamore commercials. That's right.
They did.
I wonder if those are on you. Let me see if any of those are on.
There are some on YouTube.
Hold on. Let me see.
I think like look like Lamore TV spot or something like that.
Hold on.
There definitely is. I've seen it.
Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Hold on.
It has like the poser guy who turns into the metal guy with the two.
Yeah. I got it. Hold on. Let me line it up.
Fast as a shark. That's the
yeah.
music. That's the music bed.
That's right. You're right.
Let's see if I could. Let me see if I could get this.
Shout out to Udo Dirkschneider, our friend.
Here we go. Boom, 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 boom. You got it? Hold on. Boom.
There you go.
Beat. Take a walk down 62nd Street, where heavy metal lives. Welcome to Lamore. Lamore, the rock capital of Brooklyn, brings you the most explosive live entertainment.
Tony Crack.
Friday and Saturday. This is where heavy metal comes alive. You haven't experienced heavy metal until you have experienced Lamore.
I wonder. I wonder who does the voiceover, and two, I wonder what background music that is.
Oh, it's that band Cities.
It's what?
I think it's that band Cities.
Cities?
Yeah,
they're the ones on that picture I put up. Cities. They were a little more regular.
They had another commercial that had "Accepts Fast as a Shark" in it.
Ah.
But I'm sure they got in trouble for that. So, but whatever. But like, I think that's Cities because Cities filmed their video at Lamore. They were one of the first bands.
Yeah. Yeah. Chucky Brown says U68 great UHF channel. I would constantly see the Lamore commercials on that channel. I had to put a clothes hanger on my TV to get good reception.
Same.
Definitely.
Same. I did the same.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so, you know, moving off of the Lamore stuff and whatever, you know, I want to know how eventually you chose the lane of I'm going to be an MC. I'm going to be a rapper because, you know, you were such a fan of all this music we've just been talking about. You still are. But like, how did you go, you know, being an MC is really like where I want to go with this musically.
Well, I was rhyming from like the age of 10. I was already like writing rhymes, but not recording anything. Just writing rhymes and being creative as far as just creating lyrics. I wrote all the lyrics for Injustice, and so I was always a lyricist and a writer growing up, and I was just always good at that. So I pursued that and was a fan. I mean, so I already had that going on while I was doing all the band stuff. But it was just a hobby, and it wasn't as serious. I wasn't trying to get a record deal. I was trying to get a record deal for my band, but my band broke up in 1990 after 4 years and a bunch of different lineup changes. And it broke up, and it was basically a 4-man crew at the time, and me and my brother, along with 2 mics, our drummer and our guitar player at the time, were the lineup. Mike and Mike decided not to be in the band anymore, or Actually, I will say my guitar player, Mike, just quit music, went really hard as far as his education and just concentrated on that. And me and Mike started the band. So when Mike left, for me, it was kind of the end of the band. And at that point, I wanted to do something. It's crazy because there was really nothing like Rage Against the Machine or anything that was kind of like what's the next level after Leeway, you know? That became bands like Rage and stuff like that. But nothing like that existed at that time.
Right.
And I wanted to do that. I wanted the next step to be that. I wanted to rhyme with my band, and I was starting to put it together. And at the same time, I decided to start recording hip hop demos, straight up traditional rap music for the very first time. I was listening to a lot of underground radio shows that were advertising different studios that were around, and I found out where to record at. I started going to Jamaica, Queens, to the studio called Little Rascals. This dude named Dr. Def, and started making hip hop demos. And it was so much easier to do these hip hop demos than to book studio time. I mean, rehearsal studio time.
Sure.
And corral 4 or 5 guys into a room. After doing that for 4 years, from 86 to 1990, I was just fucking sick of it, and it really wasn't easy. Holding a band together is hard. I mean, holding a group together, even a hip hop group, I've spoken about it many times over the years. It's like being married to somebody, being married to more than one person. It's super complicated, and I just wasn't with it. I was into the ease of recording hip hop demos versus the difficulty of keeping a band together.
Sure.
I didn't need anybody to do hip hop demos. It was self-contained. I was able to do it myself. Right. I needed an engineer. I needed to book studio time, but I could actually go in by myself and come out with something. It was impossible to do that with a band, and I just didn't want to have to tackle that. So I stopped. And within 3-4 years, I was signed to Geffen Records with Nonfiction. So at that point, I really felt like, I made the right decision. And I never looked back. Even 30 years later, I'm kind of like, wow, like the last 30 years went by really fast. Like I could have easily taken a totally different path. I mean, I remember right before we broke up, Biohazard had just dropped their debut album on Maze Records, and we would rehearse it at Fastlane along with those guys, and they were in Fastlane. We used to rehearse at Ace London before that, along with Biohazard and a bunch of other Brooklyn bands, and everybody kind of migrated to Fastlane. And I remember we were already playing L'Amour's. This was like after we opened up for Sepultura and done a bunch of shows at L'Amour's. We were already on Biohazard's radar. I remember Billy came into the studio and watched us play a few songs during our rehearsal. I think he was working at Fat Beats at the time. Fat Beats at Fastlane. And shout out to Billy from Biohazard. And he was super encouraging, super fucking cool, always showed us love, and was like, yo, I'm gonna try to plug you guys in with Maze Records. And it never happened. I mean, I think Maze Records ended up going out of business shortly after.
Yeah, consider that a blessing. Right?
Absolutely. But at that time, just the gesture of saying, hey, I'd like to play some of your stuff. And I was just like, yo, we're going to work on a new demo, which would have been our third demo. And we broke up shortly after that. And that was the end of that. But yeah, I don't even know why I brought that up. I don't know. I think I started my own brain.
So what was the impetus? How did Nonfiction come together?
Nonfiction came together in '95 when me and Search really sat down and decided we wanted to work together. We put Nonfiction together. That's what we came up with after he suggested that we relaunched Third Base, which I was like, nah.
Yeah.
Let's do something new.
Right.
And so we did Nonfiction, and Sabak from Nonfiction and Eclipse were Search's homeboys, and Gore was my boy, and we all kind of Voltron together to form Nonfiction. That was in '95, and by '96 we were signed to Geffen.
Wow.
And so you basically, you go in, you get signed, you record The Future Is Now, which ultimately became, it's a fucking underground classic. A lot of people know that shit. I mean, who is it from Griselda? Was it Conway? Who was on the radio talking about how he grew up like loving nonfiction?
I don't know, but I think a lot of those guys and just the generation that came after, that used to shop at Fat Beats and used to listen to Stretch and Bob and hear us up there, the guys that are like 8, 9, 10 years younger than me, came up with nonfiction, Company Flow, The Arsonists, Natural Elements, all the raucous stuff. That was the era. Those guys were teenagers. We were like in our early 20s.
Right.
And now those guys are doing it now, whether it's the Griselda dudes from the newer cats.
Right. Now you put out like a single and a video for Rock Stars from the album. And, in the video, I think it was shot at SOBs. Am I correct with that?
The Rockstars video was shot at Supreme. We shot that in front of the Supreme store and like a bunch of different locations.
The live footage.
And SOBs, yeah. And
SOBs, right? It was like a record release thing. Yep. So like, but there's stage diving in it. There's pits, blah, blah, blah. And this is, now it's like commonplace for hip hop to have like pits and people doing all that shit. And they have no idea where it comes from or the culture of it or any of it. But like you guys, it was natural because you were into music and we're going to shows where that was what people did. And you incorporated it into nonfiction. And it was like, what were people who weren't in the know? Like, what were their thoughts about stuff like that?
Well, think about the time frame. We're talking like 92, 93, 94. So this is like 2-3 years before nonfiction. Hip hop at that time, we had a few groups that started scratching the surface of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Whether it's like Cypress Hill, House of Pain, Onyx. Right. Those groups are the first ones I remember seeing pits and slam dancing and moshing and all that type of shit. You know what I mean? And I actually linked up with Onyx in like 93 and Jam Master Jay, and they were going to actually facilitate me and I was going to be their artist. We were the first, real, artists that sold records. That said, at that point they had sold 1 million records. Back the fuck up, it just went platinum, and we were basically like the first group out of the independent scene after Cypress, after Onyx, to come with it. Where it was, I want to say what they did wasn't organic, but our shit was organic because we came from New York hardcore. We came from L'Amour's. We were there. You know what I mean? We experienced this shit even more so than probably some of the rappers that started incorporating that or having that happen at their shows. We were probably the most organic twist of that. But then, of course, right around that time, Wu-Tang came out and that shit started happening at Wu-Tang shows. And it just went crazy. It was like a festival thing. Lollapalooza was happening. And that's when a lot of that stuff, the crossover of urban music with heavy music, and there's a lot of intersections where that started happening. I remember reading interviews with like Russell and Leor talking about how when Def Jam was first starting and Russell first met Leor was a booking agent booking Red Hot Chili Peppers and Run DMC shows. And there was slam dancing and stage diving happening back then, like in 86. You know what I mean? At Run DMC shows, and supposedly running, and these guys were picking kids up and throwing them into the crowd. And I wish I could see footage of that now. Yeah. But I mean, it's a lot of, there's a lot of different intersections where that shit started happening. And I think we might be the first rap group that kind of just tied all those things together, in a way that wasn't like, we weren't rapping on a bunch of guitars. We didn't do it like that. We did it kind of a continuation of what Onyx and Cypress were doing.
Yeah, because what you guys did was really authentic. Like you could see, a lot of the kids that were in that video, in the Rockstars video, were kids you would just see at other types of shows. Like, like there were even, like some faces that you'd recognize. But you guys took it even further. And what's interesting is like Eclipse and Sabak and Gore was, but like Eclipse and Sabak, we're not like metal guys, hardcore guys, whatever. And then you do something like, I'm going to reach out to Away from Voivod to do the nonfiction logo. Like, how do you bring that up to guys who don't know what that's about?
Well, you know what? Oh, you mean Eclipse and
yeah,
and
like, so
Savant?
you're like,
how did
there's this guy named Away. He's in a band called Voivod. I want him to do our logo, but they don't really know from that.
Those guys kind of
and excuse me, that would be this logo,
right?
Correct.
Still living on.
Those guys those guys gave me the reins. I mean, it wasn't even. I didn't have to explain any of that. They just saw my vision, and they were with it. And actually, the way that came about was when we were signed to Matador, because initially we didn't. At that point, we didn't. 96, 97, 98, we didn't have a logo. We would just use whatever, different fonts or whatever. And what happened was, once we had a budget, an art budget with Matador Records, which was our first record deal, we were able to hire someone to do a logo for us. And my first choice was Away from Voivod. He's my favorite artist. Genre not being hip hop, but I didn't give a fuck. I like that, made it even more appealing to me that he wasn't a hip hop artist or someone that had done hip hop logos or hip hop artwork. So I stepped to him and he did a few logos, and I never asked him to actually knock off. I mean, honestly, it was so long ago, I don't remember 100% whose idea it was to do the Voivod knockoff, but that wasn't what I was looking for when I approached him initially. It was just a logo that we wanted. He did 3 logos, and the one that was a knockoff was my favorite. And to this day, people still accuse me of stealing Voivod's logo online. And they're pleasantly surprised when I let them know, or someone else lets them know, that Away from Voivod is responsible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then you also you were talking about how, like, the types of reactions that nonfiction would get would be really to hip hop records, but you actually did one remix at the time for the CIA's Trying to Kill Me with some pretty heavy dudes, and you created more of like a metal version of one of the nonfiction songs. Like, you want to talk about the people on that song?
Well, at that time, Be Real had a side project. He had like his own, for lack of a better description or whatever, it was like, imagine Be Real having his own body count. He was fronting a metal band called Kush. And
I remember that. Yep.
So at that time, it was the rhythm section from Fear Factory. It was Christian and Raymond from Fear Factory. It was Steph Carpenter from the Deftones playing guitar, and it was Be Real on vocals. And the producer was T-Ray, who, for those that are familiar, did a bunch of stuff for Cypress and Artifacts and Cool G Rap and myself. He's a hip hop legend, producer, and all that. Shout out to
He was involved with the Judgment Night soundtrack too. We did a couple on there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's produced a couple of Helmet albums. He's won
that's right.
He's won Latin Grammys. That's my boy. Shout out to T-Ray.
Right.
So T-Ray was producing Kush at that time, and we were also working with T-Ray. T-Ray was trying to bring us to Warner Brothers at that time, and he was producing the Kush album actually in his house in Malibu when we were recording The Future Is Now, and he was attempting to bring us over to Warner Brothers because he had a situation there. So that's how it came about. The guys that played on the CIA Rock remix is Kush. It's Steph on guitar, Christian and Raymond from Fear Factory.
Wow.
Yeah.
So keeping it metal post Voivod here, you are obsessed with Slayer, whether you know it or not. And I think you know it. Like, so Drew, like, he got Larry Carroll, who did the hey, shout out Dan Looker. And
by the way, I sent Dan Looker the flyer today. I said,
oh, good.
I said, coming on the show today, He sent me the horn.
Yeah, that's outside CB's, outside Bill's show, which you have the flyer for also. It was February 3rd, 2006. It was the year CB's closed. Bill put out the Hour of Reprisal album and really wanted to play CB's. So we booked a show at CB's with that lineup. I made the flyer. I ripped off an AF flyer, and which was an old, like 1984 or so AF flyer. And that lineup is insane for CBGB's. In fact, when we all got there, the show was sold out. So they played like a late night show too.
Wow.
And so they added a second show for $5 at like midnight or 1 a.m. or something like that. Not everybody played the second show, but everybody got on stage with Bill. So everybody that's on this bill did a song like or two with Bill, or just shouted along or did whatever. And they did a second show. It's on a DVD that Bill put out a little bit later that he was shooting at the time. What an epic fucking night. And that was incredible. But Bill probably, I mean, is Slayer your favorite band? Would you say that?
My favorite metal band.
Okay, certainly. And so, you know, you have obviously we opened the whole show up with a song called Hell Awaits. You know, you got Larry Carroll doing album covers, the Slayer artist who you reached out to cold and basically got him to do it, you know. And you have, you know, the song on the Hour of Reprisal, UBS, which is the biography of Slayer.
Inspired by Nas's unauthorized biography of Rakim.
Right. And then so Bill did the unauthorized biography of Slayer, which, like, who does that? Like, that's one of the things that, like, I love about Bill as an artist so much, because I can relate to that. Like, hearing a song like that is exclusively, it is the biography of Slayer, like in a rap record, you know. And the people who got it just got it, you know. And it was incredible. And you know, going back to the Hour of Reprisal, that was like me and Bill the first time we really formally kind of worked together. And you know, I had a label through Warner Chappell, and after Bill did What's Wrong with Bill, his first solo album, which I loved, you know, it was basically sort of like, yeah, that's a Larry Carroll cover. And so, you know, I was like, you know, you should do another solo album. And we talked and we met and we were, you know, going back and forth about it, and wound up working together. And so, you know, I got to A&R one of his albums, and you know, it's still, and I'm not just saying this because I worked on it, but it really is my favorite Bill album, certainly as a solo album, although I love so much of what he's done. But like the guests that are on that album, like everybody from Your Brother and Tech Nine and Immortal Technique and Max Cavalera, and like all of these people that are on the album. And
isn't Raekwon on that album?
Raekwon's on the album. Howard Jones from Killswitch Engage is on the album.
Wow. And B's on the record too, right?
Yeah, B Real's on there.
Yeah, B Real.
Muggs did a couple of beats.
Yeah, Muggs, right.
Everlast is on 2 songs.
Daryl and HR, right?
Right. So that's what I was getting to.
Daryl and HR on that album. Yes.
So basically, you know, Bill, I remember, there you go, Rick is reminding us. And like, so I remember Bill telling me, he goes, man, each of the last couple of years, I mean, you want to tell the story, Bill, about trying to get HR to come do a song?
It took a while. Shout out to DJ Motor, my boy DJ Motor from LA. HR was living with him at that time. And that's how I finally, it actually happened. It took me years to make that happen.
Well, you said that you invited him a few times whenever you go to LA, and he just, you know, obviously, as expected, sort of, he didn't come.
Yeah.
But this time was different.
And you were with me. I think you were there. You were the catalyst. You were the good luck that made it happen.
What? Joe just showed up?
Well, so
I had a show. No, I had a show, and
El Rey Theater.
At the El Rey Theater, I had a show. It was I think it was a nonfiction Souls of Mischief show, which is funny because we're actually doing a show with them in a couple of weeks. First time, I think our first show with them since then. But yeah, that was like 18 years ago, 2005, in LA, and it finally just happened. Motor brought HR to the show, and I remember everybody backstage tripping out when they came through. I remember, shout out to Toby from H2O, and just a bunch of different people, because Toby came backstage. I remember he walked into the backstage room, took a look at me, took a look at HR, and then walked out. You know, and just was laughing and came back in and was just tripping that HR was there, and everybody was kind of bugging out and didn't understand what the fuck he was doing there, me included. But yeah, and he just hung out backstage and ended up coming back to Lethal Studio after the show. And I remember Isaac was there. Shout out to
But
Isaac.
hold on, slow down a second, because the thing was that we were shocked that he showed up. Mm-hmm. So we're like, well, now what the fuck are we gonna do? It's not like we have music for him to sing on, you know.
And we had no studio time, but because we didn't really think we were gonna get him.
Right. So we didn't. We're like, what do we do? So Lethal was at the show. So
Shout out to Lethal.
Yeah. So Bill hit up Lethal and he said, look, after the show's over, can we bring HR from the Bad Brains back to your studio and record him? And he's like, yeah, sure. So great. So then Bill and I are like, well, what the fuck is he singing over? So Bill had a Beats CD, like just beats of his, like on a CD, and it was in my car. And we're like, well, we'll play him the beats and we'll see like what he wants to sing over. Like we'll give him a choice, you know, like that's what we got. And so, because at least it had like a tempo to it and like you could sort of figure something out. So basically, we go back to Lethal Studio and we have like, I don't remember exactly how many. I think there were like 6 or so beats, maybe 7, something like that. So we played him for HR in the studio. We're like, well, what do you want to sing over? He goes, I will sing on all of them. So we're like, okay. So we basically
roll tape,
right? So it started out all spoken word, like very like calm and reserved and blah, blah, blah. And it turned into him really fucking singing. And he did like 18 or 21 takes, you know, and he just said, all he wanted was a soda, by the way. That's what he asked for, a Coke. But then, so while we get there, Bill,
those were such simpler times.
Yeah, right. And then like Bill, so tell him like then all these people like who were at the show start showing up at the studio.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. I mean, shout out to Isaac. He was there. I know he was
SD.
Everybody kind of enjoyed the moment because we were all tripping, and it was kind of before HR kind of like resurged and he started popping up and down. It was kind of, that was the first time anybody had seen him like in years. So it was cool. And then like after we did that, he started popping up and he started doing stuff with people and doing shows and doing stuff. So it was like,
yeah, Drew, you got the photo of the 3 of us in the studio.
Yep.
I mean, I think like him showing up and him doing that was the first time he kind of popped out of his cave in like 10 years. So it was like everybody was like, "What the fuck is HR doing here?" Like
this is actually that day in the studio.
That was that day. Yeah, that's it. That's it right there.
Yep, that's at Lethal Studio, right underneath the Capitol Records building.
Whoever Lethal acquired the studio from, acquired it from somebody that acquired it from like Jimi Hendrix, or Jimi Hendrix recorded albums in the studio.
There was something to the studio being right by Capitol. Like there was a reason for that. Like it was built intentionally to be for like some Capitol Records artist. Wow. And I guess Limp Bizkit was paying the bill for the studio at the time for Lethal.
Makes sense.
So that happened. And that was just an incredible fucking night. And then, Bill, you've done only 2 of the songs from that session with HR, right?
Yeah. I actually still have all those sessions. And I've only used.
You basically just bought the session from him.
Yeah, I have a lot of. I could probably make another couple songs. I could have a couple more songs featuring HR with that material. I just never. But I used some of the stuff from those sessions on the the Grammy Awards album on 40 Deuce Hebrew. That's another song.
Which is in the movie. It's just HR's movie. And
yeah, that's what Chucky said. 40 Deuce Hebrew. Great track with HR. Yeah.
Now, and then what Bill did, and again, I was A&R in the album, and we were talking about it earlier today. I get a call, I think it was from Bill, and it could have been from Vaughn Lewis, who was working with Bill at the time too. Oh, Daryl Jennifer is going to go to the studio and be on the song too. And I was like, well, I'm assuming he's going to play bass, but actually he originally came to do vocals, to harmonize with HR. And I think he wound up playing bass though. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I actually produced the track as well.
Right.
So when he came in, I asked him if he was, honestly, I think he offered to play bass. He was like, yo, if you want, I'll drop some bass on this. I was like, hell yeah. Because if you listen to the bass line he put on there, it's super distinct. It's his sound.
It sounds like him.
It sounds like a fucking Bad Brains lick. You know what I'm saying? So it's fucking crazy. That shit is crazy. And that song is called Raya. That song is a tribute to my grandmother and my daughter. My daughter's named after my grandmother. And to have a song like that featuring Bad Brains is, I didn't even realize at that time what the fuck I was doing. Looking back on it now, I can't even verbalize how crazy that is. Can't believe I did it.
That's awesome.
Was there?
I gotta take a spot.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, let's take a couple minutes. If you guys got to get up and shake it out, let me do the sponsor break, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay. See you, Howie. See you, Bill. And now a word from our sponsors. Since 1992, Generation Records has been a mainstay of the New York metropolitan area music scene. Today, they offer a diverse selection of new and used rock, jazz, indie, hip-hop, punk, hardcore, metal, blues, soundtrack, and reggae LPs, as well as t-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. They buy used record collections and music memorabilia and will pay you top dollar for them. House calls made for large collections in the tri-state area. Call or email generationrecords@gmail.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Hey guys, Vlad from Organic Grill. As you can see, we're in a new location on West 3rd Street, right by Blue Note and Comedy Central. The place is bigger, kitchen is bigger, we have more varieties, more food. We are looking forward to treat you guys with great dishes. All Hardcore Chronicles, welcome to Organic Grill. We are going to serve all the events as we usually do, and we are happy to see you guys.
Peace, what it do? Welcome to NYHC Comics at 117 Main Street, Dobbs, Surrey, New York. I'm Debo the Pro with my homie
Lee Farley.
Welcome to the spot. Specializing in yesterday's and today's comic books, rare CGCs, toys, collectibles.
Got skateboards, old school tapes, Magic the Gathering, Warhammer.
Video games, original art pieces by your favorite New York City and worldwide artists. Let's go. Skate decks all day, baby.
We also have the young readers section here for like 10 and under. Pops. People love the Pops.
Star Wars! We are New York hardcore. We always rep the scene. Let's get it on.
Come on now, it's the New York Hardcore Chronicles live worldwide. Hope everybody's well. Just a couple of reminders. 1 week from today on the show, we will be talking about the Leeway Forgotten Ones documentary with guitar player Michael Gibbons and editor Michael Belmont. Watch the film. We will be talking about it 1 week from today. That's your homework. A week after that, Cleveland, Ohio represent Trevor Moment from American Werewolves will be on the show. A week after that, celebrating the Real Live 35th anniversary show in Worcester, Massachusetts, J.R. Roach from Sam Black Church. This one, haven't announced it on social media yet, but non-residents are going to be on the show. This is one of the great bands that are popping off in New York these days. Sunday, October 29th. And then November 5th, Gizbutt from English Dogs, Prodigy, Janice Stark, and the Destructors will be on the show. We just booked a whole bunch of shows. We're getting flyers together now for them. So couple big shows coming up, including, you know, who's coming on the show? Youth from Killing Joke. It's a good one. So lots going on. I want to remind you that the show could use your support. There is a Patreon page, and if you are a patron on Patreon, you get the book for free, The New York Hardcore Chronicles, Volume 2, 1990 to 1999, free for all patrons. If it's free, it's for me. Of course, it is the companion piece to the first book. Both books featuring Howie Abrams. If you are not a patron and you want the book is available at www.stonefilmsnyc.com. So don't be shy, let it fly. Pick up the book, support the show. Don't be a taker. Give a little bit too, you know? Show 300 coming up fast. I know, man. I got to figure it out. Got to figure out what the fuck we're doing for show 300, you know? Is that right? Glamis season starting. Let's go wreck some shit. I'll never forget that trip we took out to the Glamis Desert. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, how about that? I think Youth will be really interesting. It's a big score, Youth from Killing Joke. So that's right. So like I said at the beginning of the show, this weekend, this Saturday, I will be up at New York Hardcore Comics doing a book signing. Yes, I'll be there from noon to 5. I think there's something going on called Harbor Fest, because it's Ferry Fest. Everyone's out in the street, but I will be there signing, doing a book signing. After that, Wednesday, October 18th, Steve Messina's band is playing with Rebelmatic and Highly Effective People at Baker Falls. Drew Stone Hit Squad's playing Organic Grill November 29th. Mike from Channel 3, I'm moderating his book event at Generation Records on November 11th. Yo, it's the ID record release show. It's the big kahuna. ID, Rebelmatic, The Craze are getting back together, Cortisol and Pembroke, Sunday, November 12th. Put your shoes and socks on, kids. It's right around the corner. I don't give a fuck. I'm not trying to give a fuck about your wife or your kids or your job. Just be at the show. That same day, we got a book. I will be signing books at that event as well. So not only is it the Incendiary Device record release show, but I will be signing books as well. The Women of the Pit Here and Now art event at C Squad is starting on November 17th. And then, of course, the Holiday Slamboree with everybody's favorite no redeeming social value, Butterbrain, RBNX, Chumhuffer, and Toys. Tired of your shit is Sunday, December 17th. So there you go. That said, let's bring on our co-host, Howie Abrams. You like that one, huh?
Dude, do you sleep?
Not a lot.
I mean, because I'm looking at that lineup of shit, and I'm like, I wouldn't want to do a quarter of that.
You know, when I sleep, actually, I sleep from 10 a.m. to 5, from 10 p.m. to 5 p.m. I'm up at 5 in the morning every morning.
Right. Because like when I get texts and stuff from you, it's like 7, the latest, you know, like, and I'm like, you know, a lot of the times I'm up, but I'm not always up at 7.
10 p.m. I'm asleep. 5 a.m. I'm up. It's like, I'm like, whenever we have to play a show and it's at night, it's like a horror for me, bro.
Yeah. The schedule is like totally, it's like flying.
It's like Tom Brady, you know, they were betting, like they looked at the analytics, like he would win every day game he would
right,
because he had this crazy, he would wake up.
Right, he has his routine.
When you had a night like Monday Night Football, you could bet against him.
It was a little tough. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, you're in both books, man. How about that?
I know. I'm on the back of the second one, right?
Yeah, you're on the back. Yeah. Yep.
I'm so important and popular.
You know, you're such a fountain, a wealth of knowledge when it comes to these matters.
These matters
matter. You know, that's right, Lori. I'm up at 5 a.m. with the birds. I am.
It's true.
I like it. It's nice and quiet, man. Nobody bothers me at 5 in the morning. You know.
By 9, you're like public. You belong to the public.
I'm shot by noon, bro. By noon, I'm like fucked up.
Yeah, well, it's a long day already.
Let's bring our guest, Ill Bill, back on. Hey, you seem like an early morning guy.
I am now, but I never used to be.
Yeah.
It reached in the last couple of years. Yeah, I've been switching things up. Yeah. Now I'm an early morning guy.
You're not touring as much and stuff, so you could be a bit of a daytime person.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I've done a few spot dates since COVID, but like official like tour, like weeks on tour. I'm actually embarking in 2 weeks for the first tour since COVID hit.
That's the one I posted up, right?
Yeah, the European tour.
Yep.
Hey, let me. So usually we take questions towards the end, but I got one for you here. Michael Springle asks, I'm curious to hear some of the grind and metal bands Bill was into, sort of early on in the game. Like what bands of that genre were inspired you? Were some of your favorites?
Well, metal is a huge genre, but so we could go through that. But grind,
yeah,
Terrorizer,
the best,
Godflesh, Napalm Death, Brutal Truth. I mean, stuff like that, And as far as metal bands, I mean, I can name hair metal. We could talk about hair metal. We could talk about thrash metal. We could talk about speed metal. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I just love metal, bro. I fucking listen to Striper, bro. I like everything. I used to force Howie to play Dokken songs on our radio.
It's true.
Show.
Yeah, when we did Merciless, so I said he would bring in like 5 death metal songs. He'd bring in at least 3 hair metal songs, and I like Motley Crue, like first couple of albums and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's Todd Youth. But he would have me play songs that I really didn't like, but we wanted to be well-rounded because metal is this giant genre. And there was a time when it was all just kind of metal, you know what I mean? Like as Kerrang magazine readers, from back in the day, you would see the different covers that they would do, but then they'd have the list of bands that were going to be in the issue, and it would be super fucking diverse. It would be really commercial, and then it would be Venom, and some weird British new wave of heavy metal band would be on the cover, and that's what was so cool because it was discovery. You were learning about all this new music, and obviously pre-internet. So you waited for this fucking magazine to come out to read up on all this different stuff.
Is that right? Was Jerry X in Injustice?
Yeah, that's my original singer. And he's not in that picture because that picture's from '89. I started the band in '86 with me, my boy Mike on guitar, Jerry was our singer, and the drummer was a dude named Al, who I think later on ended up in that band who you just mentioned, The Craze.
Right. Is that right?
Yeah. I don't know if he's currently in the band.
Albie?
Al Taffarelli. Albie. That's my original drum. That's my original drummer. We went to high school together. We all grew up together.
Wow! I didn't realize he was such a G.
When we played the Battle of the Bands with Demented Retribution, aka Life of Agony, my drummer was Al, and my singer was Jerry, and we were doing SOD covers. We opened our set with March of the SOD.
Wow!
And shout out to Jerry, shout out to Albie.
Here's a shot of you and our good friend Jamie Jasta back in the day.
Albie used to shout out to Jamie. Yo, Albie.
Yeah, he's in the Mad Mulligans now. Albie's in the Mad Mulligans now.
Albie used to live a block away from Gemini Lounge. I don't know if I'm sure you know what Gemini.
Don't tell me. Gemini Lounge was that Roy DeMeo?
That's Roy DeMeo's social club. That's where he used to chop people up, and that was like a block away from Albie's house. So when I used to go rehearse there, because we used to go to school, we were all truants. We would go to Albie's house and cut school and rehearse in his basement because he had drums. He was the drummer, so his house was home base for rehearsals in '86. And yeah, man, That was it. Shout out to Jerry.
You know who's from that neighborhood too? Because in doing this biohazard doc, we did like a local, like each guy going back to his neighborhood. Bobby Hamble is from.
I remember being like 13, seeing Bobby Hamble, and like I forgot what schoolyard it was. It was like a park. I didn't know who he was. I mean, eventually, everybody gets to know each other. It's a small world, especially in Brooklyn at that time in that scene. But the first time I ever saw Bobby Hamble, he had hair down to his waist. I don't know if he was wearing a Venom shirt. He was playing, but he had some kind of metal shirt on. He was playing a fucking acoustic guitar, sitting on a fucking jungle gym somewhere on a bench in the fucking park playing. I remember being intrigued with him. Like, who the fuck is this dude? He's a little older than me and shit. But like Biohazard, they were from Canarsie. I mean, Evan used to fucking deliver for fucking Lenny and John's Pizza. He used to deliver pizza to my house. Evan's sister used to work in Pips Printing across the street from me, and I used to go in there and make Xerox copies of Injustice, the Injustice Bio. Yeah. She would print them for me and be like, "My brother's in a band." I was like, "Yeah, I know."
A couple people posting questions. Let me just hold on to the questions. We're going to do a couple more things, and then we're going to do questions from around the world. But first,
somebody asked, "What's my favorite death metal band?" I saw it pop up on the screen. Death.
Oh, you want to do that? Here you go.
Shout out to Evil Chuck. Sorry.
Here you go. Favorite death metal band. Favorite death metal band.
Death.
I would thought Obituary was your favorite.
Yeah, it's either Obituary or Death, but Chuck, people forget about it. Obituary is still putting out albums.
Yeah,
it's still on tour. Death. Without Death, there wouldn't be no Obituary.
Yeah.
I found out about Obituary from their demo when they were called Executioner.
Right.
I love Obituary. They're my second favorite death metal band.
Did you hear about? Did you know about Death when they were Mantis?
Yeah, I didn't have the demo, but I found out later.
Yeah,
I found out about Mantis.
That's one band that I saw that early on, even when I didn't know who's who and what's what. Obituary was always great live.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you guys your opinion. If Possessed is death metal, because they say Possessed created death metal sometimes. I mean, I hear, there's conflicting, but let's assume Possessed. Is Possessed a death metal band? If Possessed is a death metal band, Possessed is my favorite death metal band.
I would say that they are. They definitely were the first ones to call themselves that. I know that
Possessed. Possessed is my favorite death metal band.
There you go.
That the topic has come up again, right? Because, I think Jeff Becerra did an interview where he was like, "Yo, we were the first death metal band. We have a song called Death Metal on our first album."
Yeah, there you go.
Like Sepultura at one point, they were death metal, but they're my favorite thrash metal band of all time. Yeah. Sepultura,
right?
To me, you know what I mean?
Dead embryonic cells.
Yeah, exactly. I think after Slayer, like Sepultura basically took that crown.
I mean, because it's like Metallica and Slayer to me, they transcend thrash metal. It's like they went beyond, But you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, to me, Sepultura is, they have a special place in my heart. You know what I mean? Like, I just love Sepultura.
Shout out to Max, like another guest on a Bill Gem. Just
a dream come true, man.
But just think about like when you told me, even I'm doing a song on the album that's going to feature both Max Cavalera and Immortal Technique. Like, I'm like, what the fuck is going? You know what I mean? Like, even though, again, for me, I can digest that easily, but when you hear it for the first time, you're just like, that's funny. It's killer.
I'll tell you a crazy story, a Sepultura story. When I was like 16, so we're talking like 1988. I had a zine. I never actually put it out, but I was putting it together and I was doing interviews. So I was in contact with a lot of different people. And at that time, this writer from Metal Forces, this dude named Borovoy, was managing Sepultura. And he brought Sepultura to the States. I was communicating with him because I wanted a Sepultura interview. He was working with Executioner, Obituary. He was working with Atheist at that time. And I went and I met up with him in the city and he told me Sepultura was coming to the States to sign the Roadrunner. They're coming for their first time. This is before they ever toured the States or anything. And I don't know how the fuck this happened, but somehow I ended up taking Sepultura for pizza, and I took them by CBGB's. CB's wasn't open, but they wanted to see CBGB's. And I go that far back with Sepultura.
How was their English at that time?
Terrible. They couldn't speak English. All they could say, pizza isn't an English word, but that was the closest. All they could say was they wanted pizza and CBGB's, and so I took them. And I don't even remember how the fuck we got there. We must have got on the train or whatever. But I remember. I was 88.
Hold on. I got a picture.
And 2 years later, I was open for them at L'Amour's, and I had nothing to do with it. It was straight up like it was just like
a Ken Creedy special,
like a fucking Ken Creedy special. Shout out to Ken once again.
This wouldn't be that, would it? Hold on. As I dig into the archive, I have this Sepultura. Maybe this is a little later.
I mean that,
bro. I'll be honest with you, that would be crazy if that was that day. It was that era. I mean, I don't know. I don't think
it
so.
Looks 88-ish. They're so young.
It does, right?
I mean, bro, I don't know. That might be from that day, man.
It kind of looks about right, don't it?
That's
because
crazy.
they toured a year later.
If this picture's from '88, then that was it. It was that day. I might have took that picture. I mean, but that's crazy.
The shit that we have in the archive.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Well, speaking of CBGBs, like, how did I know Gore who introduced you really to hardcore?
I would say more than I would say U68, you know, more than anything, and like SOU and RTN,
right?
You know, like we were listening to this stuff and discovering it all together,
right?
Me and Gore. I'm like a year and a half, 2 years older than Gore, so it was, you know, and that at that time that made kind of made a difference, you know, at that age. He turned me on to a lot of hardcore, though. He was the one that went and looked for it, and he was tapped into the hardcore internet at that time. I would say he was just as much into thrash metal as me, but he was into hardcore more than I was.
Right.
Punk and stuff like that. He definitely liked it more. I mean, for me, see, Gore wasn't in the band. He wasn't playing instruments. Me and Gore got into the hip hop stuff later, but I was very much trying to learn my instrument. And initially, all I could do was play crossover songs, DRI covers, SOD covers. I wasn't good enough on my instrument to play Metallica songs. I wasn't at that level yet. A couple of years after that, by 88, 89, I improved. We all improved. But so for me, I was a little bit snobby. Like I didn't think that the punk dudes was good at their instruments. So I was,
well, they weren't.
They weren't. And it wasn't. That wasn't a plus for me. I didn't like that. You know what I mean? Like I liked the bands that had a punk hardcore edge. I loved political lyrics. I loved socially conscious shit. Metallica to me was always more interesting than Slayer lyrically. You know what I mean? Like Nuclear Assault was always incredible lyrically. You know what I mean? Like, and I always gravitated towards the crossover bands. You know, to me, I loved Carnival. I didn't even understand at the time that Pete Steele was involved in Cause for Alarm. I just knew I liked Cause for Alarm better than Victim in Pain. And I'm not going to say I feel that way today, but when I was 15, that's how I felt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You know, it's interesting because it's come up a couple times is that there's a lot of people out there that sort of loved hardcore for the community and the culture and the ethos of it. You know, not necessarily the musicality of it, but they love the DIY ethos and just the get up, get out and make, you know, so people, you know, as generationally it moves on, people take certain things from certain genres. You know, I'll take this from this and that from that and this, and we'll create something new.
That was the thing, like early on, right? It was the I can do it too thing, you know, like, oh, I could do that because I can't play that well or whatever. But now, like all of these young fucking hardcore bands have that, like to have the same gear as Metallica. You know, it's like they walk into their debut show with like shitloads of fucking gear and expensive amps and like all the shit, and it's a totally different thing. And so, well, the other thing about it is like if you have that kind of gear and you can't really play, you get exposed, you know, because it's like you're going to sound like shit. But you talk about
Sepultura. I remember those guys because I work with them on a couple of things. I mean, and I guess it's out there common knowledge. When those guys started, they had literally homemade instruments.
Yeah,
like they made their own instruments.
Well, I just got through with a chapter in Vinnie's book where he's talking about the very, very early days of AF. Like it could even be that Zoo Crew show we talked about or whatever. But he's like, he goes, nobody had gear. He goes, I was the only one with any gear. But like I realized when we got to the gig that like we didn't have like drum heads and things like that. He goes, we fucking used pizza boxes.
I was there for that at A7. I was around for all.
Right.
That was my shit.
Like, we had pizza boxes on our fucking kick drum.
You go around, get a couple people pizza boxes, and they would take them to the as it uses a fucking drum head.
Right. So that's
and you know what? It sounded dope too.
Well, he said, he goes, it was kind of shocking that like it was not terrible.
It sounded good.
But like he goes, but that's what we did. And that was the punk turning into hardcore thing. It was very fucking like nobody really had anything. He's like, Agnostic Front had no gear. And, so he goes, I had everything because I worked with some studios and stuff. So I had the gear, I had drums, I had a bass amp, I had a bass, and that was a different thing. But that, if you want to talk about the real differences between metal and hardcore, it's that musicianship thing, It really is like it's this desire to be a player as opposed to being just in a band and like having fun and doing your thing.
Hey, before we kind of get into like and start feeling a lot of these questions, Bill, can we touch on La Coka Nostra? How did it come about? What was the impetus? And give us some backstory on this.
Well, La Coka popped off around 2005. What's crazy is it was around the same time that Nonfiction split up. We stopped doing Nonfiction for around 10 years, and it was it was 2005 when we stopped. And the thing is, Nonfiction was always my baby. I as much as I was always down to do solo music, I've always been a team player, and I like being part of a group, and I like the dynamic, and I've always enjoyed that. And it was a crazy time when Nonfiction split up. It was perfect timing for me to join La Coka and to do La Coka because I really was kind of bummed out about Nonfiction splitting up, and that filled the void. So it was like I kind of jumped from Nonfiction into La Coka. But
who approached you? Who to do this?
The way La Coka came about was through Danny Boy. Danny Boy is the creator and executive producer and the gang leader. He's the creator of La Coka. Shout out to Danny. And D hit me up one day, like right around the time Nonfiction was either over or about to be over, and asked me if I wanted to participate in this mixtape he was putting together. At that point, it wasn't a group; it was like a project kind of a situation. It was being called a mixtape, and I don't even think it was called La Coka Nostra yet, or it might have been. I don't know if I was told what it was called. It wasn't even relevant. The name didn't matter. It was just something for me to do, something for me to participate in, and to like do some music with somebody besides myself. Because at that point, Nonfiction wasn't recording anything, and it gave me an opportunity to do some stuff with Danny's peoples, who I didn't know yet at that point. I had met Everlast in the past, but Everlast wasn't even involved yet. So,
and when you say Danny's people, I'm assuming that's like Lethal, Everlast.
No, that's not what I mean. Lethal and Everlast is House of Pain, and that came a little bit after I got involved. Mm-hmm. Initially, I'm talking about Slane. I'm talking about Big Left.
Okay.
And a couple of other people because initially it was a bunch of us. There was people that were down. There was a couple rappers that Danny was down with. It was basically a project that Danny was overseeing, and he sent me like 5 beats and was like, if you like any of them, throw a verse on one of them. You know, I liked all of them. I sent him back. I sent him. I was feeling so inspired, and I was just looking for something to do. You know, and I sent him back. He sent me 5 beats. I sent him back 5 verses on 5 beats, and I didn't think he was expecting that. And I think he was. I know he was happy about that. And from there, within 6 months, some people left, some people joined, and it turned into basically the reformation of House of Pain featuring me and Slang. That's you know what the core of the group became.
And the thing that's crazy about La Coka to me, at least at the beginning, is Danny branded the shit out of that group in such a way before there was music, you know. And
we had everybody from Axl Rose to Little John or MOP wearing our shirts.
Ray Hogan says, "Be Real" wore that shirt every night at the Rainbow.
People didn't even know that it was a rap group.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
It got so crazy. I mean, we sold so many T-shirts. I made more money that year off of La Coka Nostra T-shirts than I made in my entire career. Up until that point. Off of T-shirts.
That's awesome.
Dr. Phil's kid, right? Didn't he wear it?
Yeah, like, Dr. Phil's kid wore a La Coka shirt on the Dr. Phil show.
Wow. You can't beat that.
We all saw it. We were like, what? And, you know, so there was shit like that. But the branding was so incredible to the point, like, it was like Supreme, Crooks and Castles, La Coka Nostra. You know what I mean? It was like everybody thought it was a T-shirt brand because there was no music yet, you know? And then the music comes and it's like, oh, there's like Be Real and fucking Snoop and like all these people were involved with the music and, you know, the whole thing. But it was still very like raw and underground.
That's the way to do it, man.
And not for everybody group.
It was all about MySpace, bro. We had thousands of kids putting La Coka Nostra after their names. It was like,
right.
We started copying them. Like it was the Ill Bill, La Coka Nostra. People started, their name became, you know, fucking Joey Bag of Donuts, La Coka Nostra. And it just ran, dude. It was crazy. Right. We went viral before we even knew what the fuck viral was.
There were LCNs after like half the names on social media.
LCN, or they would just write the whole fucking thing out, or write La Coka, or write La Coka Nostra. It was like that.
Yeah.
Dana White wearing one.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Dana White used to rock mad La Coka shirts at events. Hell yeah. I mean, we had UFC fighters. I mean, dude, it just took on a life of its own. It was crazy. It went beyond the music. People didn't even know we were a band.
A brand you can trust, Masters of the Dark Arts, To Thine Own Self Be True. Any of those really resonate for you looking back? Any fond memories or perspective you can give us?
Oh man, many. I mean, and we're still making memories. Those are still the homies. Everybody in La Coka is still my bro, and you know, shout out to all of them. You know what I mean? And so many memories, man. I can't pinpoint just one. Just the tours alone. Oh my God. I mean, I'll tell you. My greatest, this isn't necessarily the greatest, but this is one that pops into my mind. We were on stage at the Hulfred Festival in Switzerland, wherever that festival is. I'm pretty sure it was the Holtz.
What's the name of it?
I don't know. I'm fucking it up right now.
Somewhere in Scandinavia.
I'm already fucking the story up, but it was a huge festival. It was probably like 50,000 people in the crowd. It was huge. And we start doing the intro to the nonfiction song because I used to perform, and if we did a La Coka show tomorrow,
somebody said it's Sweden.
We did Sweden.
Yeah,
we did the song Black Helicopters, and as soon as I started doing the intro to it, a fucking black helicopter appeared in the sky above us.
That's nuts.
And we started tripping. And I have footage.
Synchronicity.
Somebody actually sent me a video of it.
Hultsfred, Sweden. Apparently.
Yeah. I have a question too about this, but like you know, I think a lot of people know that like just hardcore, especially New York hardcore, huge in Europe in general, but it's gotten even bigger like the farther east you go. And but so have you, you know, and it seems like underground hip hop, it gets that same kind of attention in the same kind of places like in Europe, you know, like you've been to Russia, you've been to Slovenia, you've been to, you know, everywhere in former Yugoslavia, like all of that. Like
the only time I've seen
like,
somebody stage dive off of a balcony was in Moscow.
right.
I mean, I've seen it, but I mean, at my show,
Right.
I've seen it at other shows.
Right.
Shout out to Moscow.
So why do you think the kids over in those areas relate to this, the angrier, darker shit so much?
Because
they live there.
The more fucked up the government is, the more fucked up the outlook and the musical taste is probably.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, I think it's so interesting that like if you look at a band like Madball, who's a little younger than AF had gone there, you know, as early as like 1990 and things like that. But like the younger bands, and now of course, like you have all this new crop of hardcore bands, but they're not necessarily also angry and like street level and whatever. But it feels like, again, the further east you go, like the angrier the kid, like certainly they like the angry music. And yeah, there's Roger when we were doing Merciless. And you know, I just think it's so interesting that
I was chubby in that picture. Shit, it gets better. It gets greater later.
I took it off the screen.
But yeah, I think that's just an interesting thing about like underground American music, like being big, closer to countries that hate us.
Makes sense. Hey, let me do our last sponsor break, do a quick sponsor shit, and let's come back and we'll take some questions from around the world, okay?
Cool.
See you in a minute. This is it. Make no mistake about it. It's the New York Hardcore Chronicles live worldwide, and we are sponsored by blah 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 and the Texas Silver Rush. They're a jewelry design firm and boutique store located in the birthplace of the Texas country music scene in Fredericksburg, Texas. They specialize in working with musicians in all music genres to design and create unique one-off pieces, as well as to style them for stage, album covers, promo photos, and social media exposure. Their client list includes Rock and Roll Hall of Famers Greg Rowley, Ringo Starr, and of course, your friends of mine, Agnostic Front. Information and online sales are being taken at their Facebook and Instagram page, and of course, www.texassilverrush.com. Come on now, Upstate Records. They're a New York-based DIY independent metal and hardcore label. Founded in 2017, they broke into the scene with their inaugural 26-band compilation, and since then have churned out over 80 releases in their brief 5-year history. Out now are new releases by Mark Rizzo's band Revenge Beast, Carl from Earth Crisis' Fryer, Fury of 5 Angry Corpses, with a few more surprises in the works. Check them out and a whole lot more at www.upstaterecordsnewyork.com and use the code STONE10 for 10% off, you cheap fucks. DTFM Vinyl Distro. Are you looking for extreme music? DTFM Vinyl has got you, my friend. Located on 13th Ave in Fargo, North Dakota, we have the state's best selection of punk, hardcore, metal, ska, oi, and more. Can't make it in? Shop online from anywhere in the country at www.dtfmvinyldistro.com. DTFM Vinyl, where the policy still is and always will be death to false metal. Last but not least, 126 Hardcore Clothing. 126 Hardcore Clothing is a streetwear brand for restless individuals who don't compromise. Like you, my friend. They are about being positive, spontaneous, and true to yourself. For years, they experimented with several printing methods and materials and collaborated with a large number of designers and illustrators, always giving room for the fresh perspectives while retaining the hardcore attitude. Get in touch with them, ramp up your game at www.126clothing.com. That said, if you're watching the show in rerun, please subscribe. There's a button right there. Please subscribe to YouTube. You'll get alerts on the show. There is an Instagram page for the show. There it is at stonefilmsnyc.com. People that are asking about the book. If you are not a patron, and, you know, at this point, I can't even fathom why you would not be. You get the book for free. You get a lot of content, and you're supporting this fakakta show. But if you are not a patron, there's the opportunity to join. But if you want the book, it is available at www.stonefilmsnyc.com. That said, just a quick reminder, a week from today, is it today or is it this Sunday? Hold on. Fuck, I got to do a show this fucking Sunday again? Jesus. This Sunday, the 8th, we will be talking about the Leeway documentary, The Forgotten Ones, with Michael Gibbons and Michael Belmont. No Sleep for the Wretched. Questions you have for our guests, please repost. Any questions you have, go big, get weird, go deep. Let's bring our co-host on, Howie Abrams.
I always like the word fakakta.
Fakakta. Hey, Bill, did anyone in your family speak Yiddish growing up?
I speak Yiddish.
Do you? You speak Yiddish?
I understand Yiddish fluently.
Wow.
If you ask me to speak Yiddish right now, I'm not doing it. But
right.
But I speak. You can't. I remember the teachers in fucking grade school used to try to talk shit about the other kids in the class. Even sometimes me too. And I'll catch them. I didn't let them even know I knew what they were saying. They was talking Yiddish.
My grandparents spoke Yiddish. It's an interesting language.
Yeah,
you know?
Mine too.
Yeah.
Because of that, I understand a lot of German because it's a lot.
Yes,
of
of course. Of course. Yeah. Let's field a couple of questions. Let me put Bill up top there. I like Chris Contos from Machine Head.
Chris,
our buddy from Machine Head.
He's in the boneless ones too.
In the boneless ones. Can Bill talk about the Paul Bailoff song, please?
I'm such a huge fucking Exodus fan and Paul Bailoff in particular. So for me, I don't even remember what the fuck I was thinking, but how it really came about. But what is crazy about that song is earlier we were talking about how I used to discover music. And one of the ways was a radio show out of New Rochelle called Midnight Metal, WRTN. And there was a host. His name was Matt O'Shaughnessy, and I was a diehard listener of this show. So one time he had Paul Bailoff on right after Paul Bailoff left Exodus. Mm-hmm. And he interviewed Paul and whoever had joined his new band. He had a band called Piranha at the time. And James Hetfield had just produced their demo. They hadn't done any shows yet. And it was basically letting the world know about Piranha. And at the end of the interview, Matt opened the phone lines and started taking calls. This was like 86. So I was like 14 at the time. And I called and I fucking used to tape every weekend, every Saturday night, I used to tape it. So I was able to tape myself talking to Paul Bailoff and on the phone. And so that's actually the outro of the song. It's 14-year-old me talking to Paul Bailoff. If you listen to the end of the song, the outro is I found the cassette, and actually finding that cassette is what made me know having that outro is what made me do the song. I was like, yo, this is the perfect outro. I just have the song now.
Got it.
So that's a little bit of the story.
Ramon asks, how did your DJ Premier tribute song come about?
I think that might have been like the third or fourth joint that I had done with Premier. And I just wanted to do something conceptual, I think, at the time. That was the thought, and just it was a tribute to him and my love for hip-hop and my love for what he's done. Because to me, it's like he's probably the GOAT, in my opinion.
Right on. Here's one for you, Howie. From Ray Hogan, who actually edited this thing. Howie, what living musician would be top of the list to write a bio with?
That is so fucking hard. So fucking hard.
Let me just interject that it's hard because a lot of them have been written already, but who hasn't? Who would you like to do that doesn't have one written?
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
other than Ill Bill and me.
Yeah, right. You especially. But like, like HR was bucket list, so to work with him was incredible. I mean, it's really hard because so many of the musicians that I really fucking love, like the not more mainstream, but bigger ones, let's say, are dead. So like I would have loved to have done like Phil Lynott from fucking Thin Lizzy or something like that. That would have been like absolutely incredible.
Sure.
I personally, like as far as, something that I hope maybe can happen one day is I'd love to do a Mike Muir book, and I've approached him in the past, and he's very like hesitant to do anything while the band still exists. I think for various reasons, because I know he has like a difficult past, and I think he'd have to like maybe shit on some people that he's kind of close with, but someone like Mike Muir, I think, would be interesting. I mean, honestly, I can't believe I'm doing Vinnie Stigma. You know what I'm saying? It's like as a kid, like getting into, our scene and whatnot. Like he was one of the first people I ever met, and because he was like the welcoming committee outside the shows, he'd be that guy who'd be like, hey, he knew that he hadn't seen you before, like you coming to the show? Good. I'll see you inside. You know what I mean? Like that guy. But I feel like, Bob Marley, of course, if I could bring him back from the dead, I would love to talk to Bob Marley. You know what I mean? It's difficult because I don't know how many living musicians who don't have books I really would like to dig deep into. You know what I mean?
Okay. Rick Brust asks, Bill, who did the Future Is Now cover? Been staring at it behind you all show. And who animated all your videos? They have that Liquid Swords vibe. Cheers from Haverhill, Massachusetts.
Okay, well that painting behind me, that's the actual painting that the cover was taken from. But that's done by Mir One out of LA. That's the homie, and he killed it. I mean, he did album covers for a bunch of different people, including Limp Bizkit and a bunch of other legendary groups. I think this cover might be his most hailed or most popular though out of everything he's done. Incredible artist. As far as the animation, I'm just a big a big comic book fan and a big fan of animation, so I've worked with numerous animators. What video do you want to know? Because I've worked with literally 5 or 6 different animators over my 30-year career.
Yeah. Okay.
Shout out to all of them. They're all dope.
Ricky asks, didn't Eminem turn down that Black Helicopter beat?
It was given to him. He had it. It wasn't specific. It wasn't like it was given to him, and he liked it. Yeah, I mean, and that So it was like 6 months went by, 8 months went by, 9 months went by. And I was like, yo, I mean, the fact that he wanted it made me want it even more. I was like, yo, give me that shit. He's not using that shit.
get that over here. Thomas S., the Bill Manic album is such a dope homage to Nas. What was it like putting new lyrics over those classic beats?
I mean, it was dope. I mean, it was a cool project to kind of tie into the Billy album. It's a very personal album, and so like, to go back to the Illmatic stuff. I didn't really use all Illmatic beats. I called it Billmatic, but I stuck to the Nas catalog, so it's a lot of Nas beats from different Nas albums. But that was just a chance for me and Eclipse to do a project together, because I really got to give credit to Eclipse. He mixed it and put it all together. So, there's no clearance. I mean, that could get taken down off of Spotify tomorrow,
right?
And I'm okay with it. It is what it is. It's really it's promo for my new album that's out right now that just came out a few months ago.
Joe Halleck says fond memories of Ill Bill opening for E-Town.
Yeah, the worst show of my career. I was telling Howie earlier how I feel that I'm getting the fact that I get to do a show with E-Town Concrete in December is my chance to redeem myself. Because
is that right? Is it wrong to ask how the first one? What
I know what happened. What happened was I was on tour with Coka Nostra at the time. It was in the midst of a tour in the winter time. Not making excuses. It is what it is. This is like 20 years ago. I literally lost my voice the day before the E-Town show, and got on stage and dust came out of my mouth every time I tried to rhyme. And hats off to E-Town and the crowd. They didn't boo me. They didn't shit on me. They just looked at me baffled. They were mystified about what the fuck I was doing or trying to do. And I literally attempted to perform my set that night to no avail. I mean,
you couldn't get any words out.
Nothing was coming out. I mean, it was coming out so low. It just had my voice was gone.
Wow.
So that was in Sayreville. That was at the Starland Ballroom.
Ooh, and that's a big room. It's a big room too.
I've had a lot more incredible shows that I don't remember a fucking second of. And I remember that fucking show like it happened yesterday because it was so fucking terrible. Thanks for reminding me. It's funny enough. I brought it up. It's funny. I brought it up to Howie earlier.
Yeah, he told me earlier. So as soon as I saw the name E-Town Concrete, I was like, "Oh, Bill just said that was the worst show he's ever played."
But yeah, I actually have a show coming up in December with E-Town, H2O, Madball. It's going to be
nice.
Dope. Yeah,
a chance for redemption.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Ray Hogan, and this is for both of you. Ray Hogan asks, any unsung early New York City metal bands back in the day? Is there anybody from that early era we were talking about, even that early Lamore era? Any unsung heroes? Anybody that you just thought was absolutely spectacular that never really got their due?
First Order was dope. First Order was great. There was a band from Brooklyn that used to play Lamore's a lot called First Order.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible.
Yeah, I would say Lethal Aggression.
Yeah, but they sucked. You can say them, but you'd be lying.
Yeah, right. But the thing is that they refer to themselves as New Jersey Drug Corps. But Sarcasm. Shout out to Jimmy Williams. They were good.
No, I knew you were being sarcastic because we've talked about them many times. And actually, I believe I don't want to say who. I was just about to, but so I'm not going to say who. But a friend of mine got kicked in the head by the singer of Lethal Aggression out of the Lamore show.
Oh, great. But I love
Primeval was really dope. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of dope bands from back then. Primeval was great. I had a Primeval t-shirt.
Yeah.
There was a lot of shit.
Everyone's chiming in. Attacker should have been bigger. Yeah, sure.
That was later, though. That was a little later.
Music is interesting like that. You see, you see bands early on and you go, wow, these guys are going to be huge. And
there was a good band. There was a good band called Toxemia that used to do shows.
Of course. Wasn't that the drummer that ended up in Typo? Isn't that
Sal? That was Sal. Matt Siegel. That was Matt Siegel's band, and they used to do a lot of shows with Biohazard. I believe they did Negative Night. I think they were the opener.
They did. Hold on. Let's go into the archive.
I don't think they're on the flyer, but I'm pretty sure they did Negative Night.
There's a flyer with them on it, or the T-shirt, or something. I've seen their name on it.
I have their album on vinyl. Toxemia album. I forgot what it was called. It's like a white album cover, black and white, with like a upside down peace symbol or some shit.
Here we go. Get a load of this one. This is a T-shirt,
right,
from the
Negative Night thing.
Negative Night T-shirt. Here it is.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, man.
Carnivore, Sheer Terror, Biohazard, Toxemia.
A lot of people don't know about Toxemia. They were good. They were dope.
Yeah. If you had to ask me for one band from New York that was in that crossover thing or whatever, it's Leeway. To me, Leeway should have been fucking massive. Chris Winter was dope, but they're one of those bands that when they were actually around, not a lot of people knew them, but then they became one of those classics. People would mention Winter and they were oh, they were almost like a little Celtic Frosty, and they were Doom and whatever. But when they were actually around, people didn't really know that they existed.
Nobody gave a shit.
Well, they just didn't know. It wasn't people weren't apprehensive about them. They didn't know they were there.
That
Right.
band First Order was really good. They have a demo. You could find it on YouTube, but it doesn't do them justice. It was recorded.
I mean,
quality.
Crumbsuckers get tons of love.
Crumbsuckers got love back then too.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
We did-
Crumbsuckers. I mean, I
We
fucking
performed. We performed. We not Injustice did a show with Crumbsuckers. I'm
With
pretty sure
Crumbsuckers?
Lamar's. Yeah, Lamar's.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like.
And then
Go ahead.
a show on Sunday. I got the Leeway show at the Leeway doc. Yeah,
Right.
that starring Howie Abrams.
Yeah, I'm in that. Like at the very beginning. We all,
Yep.
you know what's the one thing I'll say about that documentary is that everybody like contributed their shit on their iPhones because it was made during COVID.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting show.
Yeah.
A couple of photos here that you guys sent me. You know, I always like to get through this before we. What's happening here? Boom.
Oh, that's backstage at Webster Hall. It was the first New York show for Heavy Metal Kings. So that's Bill, Q Unique, me, and Vinnie Paz. I had just come from work at Paragon Sports and walked over to Webster Hall, and that show was amazing. Like it was packed to the fucking gills in that Marlin room. That was the middle size room that held about 600 people, fucking packed, and that was the first New York Heavy Metal King show.
Let me field this one. No offense meant, Howie, but are you the one they called Fat Howie from Philly, or is that a different dude?
Definitely.
I'll handle this.
Go right ahead.
Fat Howie was a different guy. He was a promoter from Philly. Actually, he was big into wrestling and stuff like that. So two different guys. Fat Howie, who passed away a while ago, God rest his soul, was a promoter from Philly. Not to be confused with my neighbor, Howie Abrams.
Or Uncle Howie, or any of the Howies.
Or Uncle Howie. So there you have it. Is that right? Q Unique plays in a band with Fieldy from Korn these days?
Yeah, for a while now.
Right. Oh, speaking of
Stillwell.
Speaking of Howie's, this is probably the best Uncle Howie shot I've seen. Looks like he's having a time of his life here.
Lemoore.
That was actually at Lemoore when they reopened. Nonfiction did a show with Biohazard at the reopened Lemoore's in like 2005 or 2003, 2002. I don't know, in that time frame.
He looks like he's in good shape here too. He looks like fucking Norman Reedus. He looks like a rock star.
I agree.
Yeah.
He was a rock star.
Yeah.
Still is.
Clayton asks, are we going to get another La Coka album?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. What else? Yes, Howard was Captain Cosmic. That's right. That's who he was.
Aha.
Yeah. Let me see what else.
Are there more photos? I'm just trying to think if like.
Yeah, no, I got. Oh, this is a good one. I like this one. Yeah. There's a couple more that did make their way on. How did you connect with this guy, Bill?
Oh, that was at when me and Muggs put out an album in 2010 called Kill Devil Hills, and that was at our in-store at Fat Beats. RZA came by unannounced, surprised us, and bought the album, got online, and had us autograph it for him. Greatest guy on the planet.
That's awesome.
I'm a huge fan, and that just made me an even bigger fucking fan. Super down to earth, incredible experience. It blew my mind.
That was a fun day.
Hell yeah.
That's great.
And shout to Ninth Prince, RZA's brother. He was there too. I'm pretty sure he's the one that brought RZA.
This is a good one. Another Chucky Brown from Crazy Eddie. While recording the track "Fuck Tony Montana" in DJ Lethal's house, was that the first time in 10 years House of Pain got together in the studio? Also, was he the first rapper to be signed by Fat Beats?
The first question, yes. The answer is yes. That was the first time those guys were in together, the three of them in the studio together. And we recorded that and another song. I forgot what the other one was, but yeah. Was I the first rapper to be signed by Fat Beats? No, I'm not. I've never been signed to Fat Beats, but Fat Beats distributes my music, and at that time, basically, Nonfiction is the first rap group to ever be distributed by Fat Beats. Our first single was called Legacy No Tomorrow on Searchlight Records, and Searchlight was distributed by Fat Beats. And the very first record Fat Beats ever distributed was a record by the DJ crew, the X-Men, who later changed their name to the Executioners, signed to Loud Records.
Right.
That was the very first 12-inch that Fat Beats manufactured and distributed. The second one was Nonfiction. So I was the first rapper to ever be distributed. Nonfiction was.
Got it. And just let's touch on this real quick. You guys are heading out to play some shows. I love this flyer, by the way. I really love this flyer.
Yeah, we have some shows coming up in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, actually, no, a week from today, I fly out to Europe. So yeah, it's even sooner than I thought. And actually, there's a couple of more shows. We're going to put up a new flyer, I think, tonight or tomorrow with like 3 additional shows.
Oh, Lords of the Underground too, huh?
They're on like half the shows.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Is this a fun thing for you to do at this point? Like go out with your old friends and do Europe where people appreciate you and love you?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah. It's great. It's a blessing to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Later. I mean, Nonfiction put out an album in 2002. We split up in 2005. I mean, we were around for 10 years, but I mean, 2005 was fucking 18 years ago. I mean, we've only put out one album. To be able to go to Europe in 2023 is a fucking beautiful thing.
That's great. Is Peter Green from The Mask in the Warlord video or just a lookalike?
No, that's Peter.
There's only one Peter Green. Man. Yeah, thank God there's only one of those guys running around. Oh man. He's the best. Thomas asks, any memories of doing the 14 years of rap video shoot with Nonfiction and the Arsonists? That was a classic of underground hip hop.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, if you're familiar with that video, it looks like there might have been some CGI happening on one of my eyes, but it's not CGI. I literally had a professional Hollywood eye lens, contact lens person make me a contact lens. I found out who was making contact lenses for Rob Zombie, and I had them make me a contact lens that ended up irritating my fucking eye so badly that day that I almost didn't put it in. And I never had put a contact lens in my eye before that or since then. It was a fucking nightmare, but it was worth it. It was definitely worth it.
I'm wearing them now.
Yeah, it's like this red, white, and blue fucking Masonic, bastardized Masonic symbol that I like fucking reconfigured and fucking I had a fucking contact lens made out of it, so it was like imprinted on my fucking eye.
Ouch. Kevin Wallace asked, Bill, did you go to school with UG from Cellar Dwellers?
Well, I would have if I wasn't a truant, but I grew up with Ugg from Cellar Dwellers. He's from Glenwood Projects, so I lived 2 buildings over from him. We all grew up together. He used to come to my house when we were 12 and play fucking Breakin', the fucking Commodore 64 breakdancing video game. Listen to fucking Roxanne Shante tapes, battling UTFO, and we're talking 1985. I've known.
Sure.
Long before we ever had record deals.
DJ Riz and Wildman Steve had a radio show in Long Island, and Nonfiction would go on the radio, and their name at the time was called The Goon or The Goons, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
That week, that was our name.
Oh, it was like that.
The Goons.
It was like that, huh?
Yeah, we had a different name. It was, the crew. It was me, Gore, and Necro. Also, there was this dude that was down with us at that time called Captain Carnage.
It was a revolving cast of characters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was our very first and really only Merciless promo photo. And I had a friend like come to East Village Radio when we were doing it initially, and basically took some photos of us just so like we could use them for flyers and whatever. So we did that. And shout out to Cousin Joe, because Cousin Joe's the reason we got Merciless in the first place. You know, that's basically how it happened. I was a guest on the Black and Blue Takeover, and Cuz was just sort of like, you know what, you should do a show. Like, I'm going to introduce you to the guy. And he introduced me to the people at East Village Radio. And the first person I called was Bill, because I was like,
what was Merciless on East Village Radio?
Originally, yeah. We did the first few months.
And you had to physically go down there to do it?
Yeah, we would go down there to do it. And then, you know, we had some issues with them. Like they were shutting down anyway. But like, you know, ultimately, you know, we had to put it to an end there. And then we switched over to our friend Primetime over at Bushwick Radio, who basically had like a townhouse in Bushwick, and he took the ground floor and made a radio station out of it. And it was all hip hop and dance stuff. And we were the only people doing anything like what we were doing on that channel. And, you know, and I'm not saying this to like, you know, shit on Bushwick Radio, but we were the biggest show they had, like from from day one.
Yeah, I want to say shout out to Carlos from No Echo. He just I hadn't looked at the chat the whole time because I want to get distracted. So I this is the first time I'm actually looking at the chat, and I see he just posted shout out to the Dead Celebrities, another name they used, or was it Dead Jacksons? So the Dead Jacksons were from the Bay Area.
Yeah. They were like a metal band.
I found out about the Dead Jacksons because of that remember that magazine Art Shock America? And Ron Quintana used to do. Remember, he used to do the Bay Area Report.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I know who the fucking Dead Jacksons are, and probably why Carlos knows who the Dead Jacksons are. But it was Dead Celebrities, was me and Gore-Tex's group before Nonfiction, one of our names, and we actually recorded demos under that name. And actually, Chuck Chillout, the hip hop DJ, was our manager at that time. He was managing us and Black Moon.
Wow.
Before Black Moon ever dropped their first single, actually, I'm in the very first Black Moon video for the song "Who Got the Props." Me and Necro are both in that video. And, you know, shout out to Black Moon. Those are my boys. Like since 92, 91, 92, I met them.
Wow.
Long before, even before they ever dropped the record or anything like that. And he was and Chuck Chillout was managing me and Gore-Tex and those guys. Yeah.
Just reminded me that there's, you know, Howie, you'll get a kick out of this. When me and Paris were doing the music videos back in the day, there was a group that there's two groups that we almost did videos for, not once but twice. One was Overkill, the other one was Das Effects.
Oh yeah.
Two times we like wrote treatments. We met twice. We were like right there, both those groups, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, you were in the mix there for a minute with a bunch of the hip hop stuff, and like you started getting those videos, and so you know, like I still like. There's a couple I was like, oh shit, I forgot they did that. You know what I mean? Like hip hop videos.
Well, you know, not to veer it off, but you know what we did that's interesting, that's sort of lost in the shifting sands of time is, if you remember, we did the two Flatliners videos.
Right. Those are like some of the videos where I was like, you know, like I didn't realize that you did them, you know?
Yeah, we did those two. With that.
You did Slam. Did you do Slam?
Yeah.
Well, that's that era, and I remember Flatlines came right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and you know the Flatliners videos were great because they were on Def Jam and they had a budget.
Right.
Well, it was Russell's nephew.
Are you trying to say that we didn't have a budget for Madball's video?
You know,
we're like, here's a salami sandwich. Do a video.
You know what we did? Here's a real forgotten one that we did. We did The Youngsters with Fat Joe.
All right, so now the Youngsters was what's his name? The actor kid, right? Or am I thinking about? There's another. No, I'm thinking.
Are you thinking of Onyx with Fredro?
No. There was another group that was like, what's the one that Alchemist was in? He was in a duo.
The Hooligans.
That's
with Scott Kahn.
Scott Kahn. That's what I meant.
Scott Kahn.
Scott Kahn and fucking him. And because for some reason that popped up recently and I saw it, I'm like, wow.
Slangers did a movie with Scott Conn recently.
So funny.
The chat room blowing up. Flatliners equals nepotism. Flatliners had mad dough behind them. They had a few CDs come out over the last 6 years of Okay, Clayton's. I'm trying to decipher this. Bill, that Ill Bill is the future mixtape. I think Volume 2 that had Danny Boy hosting is my favorite mixtape of all time.
That's all of La Coka hosted that. Different sections are hosted by Everlast, Lethal, and Danny.
All right, here's a trivia question first in the chat room, okay? Flatliners the best in hardcore. Okay, best in horrorcore. Okay. Who was the horrorcore group that just beat Flatliners to the punch? Because there was only room at the time for really.
When did Gravediggers come out?
Well, that was it. You just answered
right.
It was Gravediggers, which was Prince Paul and RZA, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
now there's a million of those fucking kind of groups. It's like not a new trend, but it's like it's hot. Like that's
Gravediggers, everybody.
Beat ya. Sorry.
I hate to say it, but Gravediggers was pretty good. Yeah.
I like Gravediggers.
Gravediggers is great.
6 feet deep.
That first single, Diary of a Madman.
Yeah. They beat them to the. They basically beat them to the punch by a couple months. You know?
Yeah.
Is that right? Gravediggers open for Biohazard and House of Pain. Let's see that.
I could see that happening. I never heard that, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Mr. Hyde is good too. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, hey, who's hungry? Hey, Bill, how did you lose so much weight?
Shut my mouth.
Is that it? Just.
Yeah, that's it. Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we're like really three skinny Jews on this thing.
How's your hip? Howie?
Hip's pretty good. Like for like I don't think I'm going to be playing in the NFL anytime soon, but basically the hip's pretty good.
Yeah, I lost some weight. I stopped eating I just stopped eating fucking sugary shit. You know.
Yeah, it's tough, and like obviously I don't want to blame COVID for everything, but we just sat home and ate.
COVID changed my life for the better. COVID was
me too.
COVID was the catalyst for me getting shit.
Is that right?
Changing my shit around. Yeah, absolutely. It enabled me to fucking punch out and fucking slow the fucking train down for a second. See what the fuck is going on. I've been on a fucking train for 25 years.
Right.
COVID was the first time I was able to get the fuck off of it.
Yeah. Bill and Hoya are having a fitness contest.
Yeah,
Hoya, in around the same time, Hoya and me, he was a few months ahead of me, and I talked to him and just like, yo, so dope, very happy for anybody that figures it out before it's too late. You know what I mean? Because we're getting older now. A lot of people I know in our age group, they're not making it, bro.
Yeah.
No old fat people.
Yeah. No, you gotta. It's time to pull it together. As we wrap it up, Chris Contos, first horrorcore song was "My Mind's Playing Tricks on Me" by who? Come on, bro.
Ghetto Boys.
Come on, give us a little
hit.
Come on, bro.
I mean, listen, if we're gonna say all that, you'd have to pick an earlier Ghetto Boys song if you're gonna credit them with that, and you absolutely can credit them with that, but it would be an earlier song, not Mind's Playing Tricks on Me, which is pretty fucking tame compared to Ghetto Boys' earlier material.
Yeah, that first album is just chock full of fucking, like it was the first, really fucked up hip hop album that I can remember,
Mind of a Lunatic is one of my favorite songs of all time.
So good.
Ghetto Boys is one of my favorite groups of all time. Ghetto Boys made me feel like I could talk about what I talk about.
Is that right?
Yeah, there you go, right?
Yeah, they made me feel like it was okay to talk about metal type stuff on rap records.
Right. I'm not the only lunatic.
That's
Ghetto
right.
Boys was Houston, 5th Ward, right?
Yeah. So, and before, Deaf American got a hold of the album, everybody was talking about it because it was getting censored everywhere and fucking no one wanted to sell it and like all that shit. And then because of all that hoopla, an album that probably should have sold 10,000 copies sold like 100 and then got picked up by a major label.
What was that group? Oh, God, what was that group when we were real busy doing this stuff? I think they were on Def Jam. I didn't. Live Squad. Ever hear Live Squad?
I know that. That's all I know.
Yeah. What's up with Cannibal Hulk 2?
Marvel Comics is what's up with Cannibal Hulk 2.
Oh. Is that what the fuck is Cannibal Hulk 2?
Did they come at you? They did, huh?
Basically, I can't say much, but they're not going to be a Cannibal Hulk 2.
Right.
Let's just say that. But enjoy it for what it was.
Yeah, right.
And not to say like, I'll keep selling it and I'll keep selling T-shirts and whatnot, but I'm not going to poke the bear anymore. They were really cool. They're actually really cool about it.
Right.
I think they look at it almost like a plus, but only up until a point. You know what I mean? It's like, but anyway. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to create problems that don't exist.
Sure. Why go there? I guess, is this Carlos? I got into a car accident with Bill on Horace Harding next to St. Francis Prep. We were blasting Mob Deep.
I want to say too much info, but in this day and age, it's never too much info, Carlos.
Right. Hey,
it's true. It is true, by the way.
Hey, thanks for coming on.
It was also in the middle of a fucking thunderstorm.
Oof.
Blame it on the rain.
Blame it on the rain. There you go. Hey, I want to thank you guys for coming on. Let's go get something to eat. Howie, anybody you want to shout out? Thank?
No, I want to thank you for asking me to do it.
It's fun.
Bill,
We'll do it again.
Yeah, I'm basically you brought up the weight loss and stuff. I'm very proud of my man right there. Like, that's a very, very difficult thing that he's done and still in the midst of doing. And so I'm very, very happy for him. I'm looking forward to new music and, seeing some shows and whatnot. And the only thing I could say is be on the lookout for Stigma's book early next year, The Most Interesting Man in the World. And we're going to have some fun shit going on around that.
Fantastic. Bill, anybody you want to thank, shout out?
I want to thank you guys. And I want to shout you guys out.
Well, thank you, buddy.
Because I don't do this kind of shit. So, thanks for making it painless.
Yeah. Yeah, my pleasure. Maybe we'll do it again. We'll do it again. We'll do it again soon.
Part 2, fuck it.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Howie, you'll come on again and co-host something with me. It makes my life a lot easier.
Yeah, you're like, I'm just going to sit here, bro.
Kind of, yeah. It's like, So, all right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Drew.
Have a good night. Take care, Bill. Take care, Howie.
See ya.
All right. There you have it. Great show. New York Hardcore Chronicles Live. I hope you enjoyed it. At least half as much as I did co-hosting it. We'll see you on Sunday. We'll talk about the Leeway doc. This Saturday, I'm going to be up at New York Hardcore Comics signing the new book. If you can make it up there, it would be great to see you. Thanks, everybody. Until next time, do good things and good things will come to you.